Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of 3 Point Weekly. Today, we will be starting our standings predictions with the Western Conference, starting from 15 and working our way up to the 1 seed in a conference that has a ton of really, really good playoff teams that should have a ton of fun debates as we get into the playoff discussions. But we're going to start with Gabe down at the bottom with the few teams that are going to be clearly tanking. We'll see what Gabe has as the worst team in the Western Conference next season.
All right, so I didn't just look at the rosters and be like, which team has the 15th best roster? It was also kind of due to some circumstance and sort of team direction and the sort of vibe you get from them. And so, well, I don't think roster-wise this is the worst team in the NBA. I have the Spurs as the 15th seed. They went to media day. Coach Pop literally said, yeah, do not expect much from us this year. They've got some really good young talent. But what are they doing right now? They're in full rebuild mode. Got a couple young guys they're going to want to develop. Got rid of DeJounte Murray to really commit to the direction they're going into. And so I think this is what the Spurs do. What was the last time the Spurs were really bad? Right before they got Tim Duncan. Bottomed all the way out. Were just as bad as possible. Got that number one pick. And then they were right back in it pretty soon after. And so given the kind of organization they are, I think that they're going to – I don't want to say try – to be the worst team in the league, but they're definitely going to be a little bit more liberal with losing games.
See, I agree with everything you just said, but just for the simple fact that it's the Spurs, it's Greg Popovich, I feel like they won't be the worst, but I feel like they will be down there. I went with the Jazz. I just think that's a team that is fully committed to. They have a direction. They know what they want to do. It's going to be cool to see like Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton score a lot of points on a terrible team. But it's not going to acclimate to winning games. So I could see them winning like around 16, 17 games. I don't think they're going to be very good next season, especially after they trade like Malik Beasley, Mike Conley, possibly being gone too. I don't think they're going to be good at all.
I also have the San Antonio Spurs here. Popovich being the coach definitely gives them a chance of having a few more wins. Ultimately, when I look up and down this roster, there's some exciting young pieces, but there's an argument that their roster as a whole is the worst. Their best player compared to any other team is the worst of any other team. There's just not a lot of proven talent here. There's a lot of fun young pieces that could develop over the course of the season, but I just don't like any of the talent on this roster committing to any amount of success. Give them a few years maybe, but I put San Antonio as my 15th seed.
That's fair. I have them 14, so not that much higher.
Yeah, everyone down at the bottom in these bottom four seeds is relatively interchangeable for sure.
Yeah, I know. All these teams are probably going to be from like, I think probably like 20 to 26 wins. Like, I think it'll be cutting real hairs, especially in the situation where you have the draft lottery and it's like the worst couple of teams now have around the same odds. It's like, these teams want to be bad, but I don't know if anybody's specifically pushing for 15 over like 14. So it really is what it is at the bottom. I think as long as our team's sort of in the same range, same tier, that makes a little bit more sense at the bottom. Really up towards the top is where I think it's going to be like, oh, this is why this team is 4 over this team being 5. But like here it's a little bit looser. At 14, I have Oklahoma City. Simply for the reason that they just keep doing this, bro. Ever since the injury, I'm just like, man, they just keep doing this. Like, I somehow just have this gut feeling that we're going to get to January and somehow, like, Shea's not going to be playing. Lou Dort's not going to be playing. Like, all these players, I just have a gut feeling that they're just going to do that one more time. And so while they definitely have some better players and some better pieces than a couple of the teams above them, on my list at least, something about the way this team operates and works, I just feel like they're just going to bottom out again on purpose.
I feel like you're the most anti-OKC person out of all 3 of us, and we're all pretty anti-OKC right now just because we don't like what they do. But I swear, every time I see Gabe at school and some OKC news comes up, he's like, man, they're doing it again.
They keep doing it, bro. They're just trying to lose forever. It's like, bro, until I see this team do something to start trying to win games, I just think I'm in the mindset that OKC just wants to be bad, and so I think they're just going to be bad.
Yeah, I can see it. I already mentioned the Spurs, my 14th. Not much to say, but I'm excited to see Josh Primo get a lot more minutes. That's all I have to say about the Spurs.
Yeah, that'll be good to see with them for sure. In fairness to OKC, it definitely feels like they've been bad or worse than they have for longer than they have been. It has only been 2 years, but at this point in time, like after this year, they need to start winning. But on to my number 14, that is the Houston Rockets for me. I think they're still a year away from being a considerate threat to pushing for the play-in tournament. I think Jalen Green's set for a really good year. I think he's going to get a ton of opportunity. I think Alperen Sengun sliding into the starting lineup is going to be fun and exciting. He's such a fun offensive big man with really good passing skill set for his size. Not to mention the fact that they've brought in multiple first-round picks again this year, one of which being Jabari Smith Jr. I think there's a lot of talent there, but I think they're still a year away from really making any sort of push.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're a team that kind of gets overlooked when we talk about rebuilding teams, but I think they're doing a pretty solid job, like just getting talent in there. You mentioned Jabari Smith Jr. Tari Eason was another good pickup. I believe they also drafted Kennedy Chandler. No, they got Ty Washington. Yeah, yes. So they got a lot of talent coming in. So and to build on top of the guys that they already have there. I have them 13, so I'm glad that you just talked about them because very solid young core that they have. It's just the West is so good. Like they're a young team that's going to get caught up in the top half of the West being so great.
Yeah, I also I agree with that sort of soul sentiment of like a year away from really pushing into being competitive. I think obviously last year's draft was good for them, and then this year's draft was also pretty good. Obviously, we haven't seen that translate on the court yet, but just coming into it, I think that they do have a lot of talented pieces, a lot of guys who could be on their roster for years to come. And so I do not have them at 13. Because I have Utah at 13, who we've already kind of talked about. And I just think the reason I have them higher than San Antonio and Oklahoma City, they're going to be really bad. But it's almost like if you remember when the Lakers were really bad and they had like Lou Will and they almost traded him they did trade him like halfway through the season because he was almost just too good and winning them too many games. I feel like because Utah's roster isn't exactly young, these players might sneak their way to getting a couple wins, and then about halfway through the season, then they're shipped out. And then this team really bottoms out at the end. But just because the other teams below them are sort of working with young pieces and just developing them, whereas this team is a little bit older and those guys aren't like on the development track, I think they will like just eke out a couple more wins early in the year that keeps them a little higher.
Yeah, I have similar thoughts about Utah as well. That's why I put them at 13. Before they make all their trades, that inevitably will come. Their depth is going to be really good for a team that's this low in the standings. Like you mentioned, they have a bunch of vets. They have some guys that at least have some experience at winning and closing out games. And that's going to get them a few extra wins here and there. They just have a lot of guys who can score. Their defense is going to be questionable, but when you talk about Mike Conley, Colin Sexton, Malik Beasley, Jordan Clarkson, Taylor Horton-Tucker, they have a lot of guys that are going to be able to get buckets for them. And when all of them are just hitting their shots, they're going to win games. So they're not going to be anything special, especially once they make their moves around the trade deadline. They're really going to fizzle out, but I think they got enough guys who can put up 15, 20, 25 on any given night that they'll have a bit of an edge over a couple of the teams below them.
And they have Nikhil Alexander-Walker. Don't forget him.
They do have Nikhil Alexander-Walker.
Best player.
He won't play much until Mike Conley gets traded, but hopefully that's wrong.
That's the most improved player pick, man.
Hey, it was just a year off. That's all it was, man. I'm telling you. This is the year. Man, so we're at 12 now?
We are at 12, yes.
We are at 12, yeah.
I put OKC there just for the simple fact of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That's why I have OKC this high. And plus, they typically start around at like the 12 range, and then either Shai gets hurt or something like that, and they shut him down for the whole season. But I feel like it might be a little different this year, but maybe not because they might be really bought in on getting Victor. I don't know. This is just hope for me that OKC will try and be somewhat decent. And I can see them finishing around 12.
See, that's what I was saying with that. They might just somehow Shai gets nicked because most players don't play 82 games. All of a sudden, Shai gets nicked up a little bit, and then they're like, "Oh, he's gonna miss like 5 games." Then all of a sudden they're like, nah, he's shut down for the season. He's gonna be out for a long time. And it's just OKC. So I can see why you'd have him because you're like, yeah. So far out of the 4 rosters you've talked about, Shea's the best player that like has been included in this list so far. So him being a little bit higher, it makes sense, but I've got my reasons.
I totally respect your reasons too, because OKC is a very frustrating franchise because Shea has all-star talent and has never been able to have a full all-star season. I don't think dude's injury prone. I really don't. I just think he might get a little nicked up, and then the team's like, we'd rather just protect you and keep you out for an extended period of time than have you play through because we're not trying to be a playoff team.
Keep that trade value as high as possible.
Hey, he's either a Knick or he's a Raptor, apparently.
Apparently. Yeah, this is also where I had OKC as well. Like you said, just mainly for the sole reason of SGA being here. Again, it depends how healthy they can stay and how committed they are to winning. But this was also like quietly a relatively good defensive team for as young as they were when they were healthy last year. And they've added Ousmane Dieng, who should be a decent lengthy defensive wing for them this year as well. So they, if they want to be, should be the best of these 4 rebuilding teams down at the bottom of the West. Whether they can stay healthy and they commit to winning is 2 different things. But if things can go to a way where they want to win and they can stay healthy, then they should be the 12 seed. But as you alluded to, Gabe, that remains to be seen.
Yeah, I have Houston at 12 because I just think out of these rebuilding teams, not only are they the furthest along, I believe, in just their whole rebuilding process, but besides maybe the Spurs, who I just think they're going to bottom out completely, just Oklahoma City, Utah, Houston, out of those 3, I think Houston is the most likely to have the same guys playing in January, February, March that they do at the beginning of the season, instead of having some other like backups or just because in Utah's case, players get traded and are out the door, whatever it may be. Houston's guys are going to continue developing. I like what I saw from Jalen Green already toward the end of last year. I think Jabari is a bit more of the ready to help contribute right now coming in with what his role will be when he first gets there. So given all that, I think probably for a lot of the season, you might see Utah at 12 actually, and you see Houston at 13, 14. But then as it sort of gets towards the end, you'll see that flip and Houston will finish at 12. But I think it's pretty obvious here we all have the same 4 bottom teams, so we know who the rebuilds are.
Yeah. Houston's definitely in a good spot, too, because they got the Christian Wood situation out the door. John Wall's also gone. Those were 2 kind of like hanging clouds over that organization last season. So they have all that going. So now it's just going to be about developing the young talent and just these guys going out there and hooping.
Yeah, definitely. I think they've got themselves in a good spot. Like you mentioned earlier, Tyrik, it's kind of weird that Houston have become a bit overlooked when talking about rebuilding teams, considering they were the team that traded away James Harden to start their rebuild. Bit of a non-under-the-radar way to start a rebuild, but they have quietly done a very good job. They certainly have.
Sometimes it's good to just be hanging back, though, because they might be the team that surprises everybody. You never know.
I mean, Cleveland did a pretty good job of doing that last year. So
Indeed.
Definitely.
Going into number 11, right? I feel like I need to start here because I think we all probably have the same 3 teams at 11 through 9. And I put the Lakers at 11.
You did.
It might be a crazy pick.
Okay.
And I was really close between them and who I have at 10. But something about like the Lakers and just falling apart, having these nightmare outcomes, the players aren't playing. It's like AD gets hurt, which because we haven't seen him be able to stay healthy in so long that I just know I can't like put faith in that when doing predictions and his health. And then you can't rely on LeBron to carry all this load anymore because we've seen at his age now once he starts trying to do too much in 2019 or last year, then he starts getting dinged up himself, and then he has his own problems, and then everything just sort of starts to fall apart. And so given all that, obviously they have made a couple roster changes, but I really don't know if that's sizable enough to move the needle in any specific direction more than just them staying healthy would. And because I can't really trust in them to do that, that was the deciding factor for me to have them at 11.
Yeah, okay. I don't hate it. My 11, I really hate doing this, man, because I feel like this team has such a good offseason. If this was last year and the West was in the state that it was, I think they would be a playing team easily. The Sacramento Kings, man, I got them at 11. It's the West is just too good, and I don't trust them enough. I have to see it on court. And we talked about in the offseason, as good as the moves that they did make, they still have a lot of questions, especially on the defensive side of the floor. And even Mike Brown, like last time I seen him coach as a head coach, it wasn't great. So I'm not sure if he's the guy that's going to get them into the play-in. Hopefully I'm wrong, because I really do want to see the Kings play some type of meaningful basketball, but I don't think it's this year, man. I got them sitting at 11, outside looking in.
Well, this is fun because we all have a different team missing the play-in tournament. I have
You
the
have-
Portland Trailblazers as my 11 seed.
I knew you would.
Man
knew you
knows I
would.
don't believe in Portland.
They don't have a good defensive center.
They don't have a good defensive center. You're not wrong. Like you guys said, like it was a tough decision to choose on who to miss out of the play-in tournament. I feel like all 11 of the top teams deserve to be in some form of postseason basketball, and that's just not going to be the case. Portland are going to have a good offense again. That much is for sure. And they made a few good moves this summer. The Jeremy Grant addition was good. Gary Payton coming in was a good signing. Nasir Little can hopefully take another jump. But there is still a lot of defensive concerns, and that's what really holds me back. As you did mention, they do not have a defensive center. And when you don't have a defensive center behind two very poor defensive guards, that is a big cause for concern, because you're going to allow a lot of dribble penetration. And when I think about a team that's going to have a poor defense and I'm relying on their offense, and I'm comparing this to all the other teams above them, I don't know if I buy in to their offense as much as I do other teams above them, which might be saying something for a team like Sacramento. Like, as you said, Tyrik, we haven't seen a very large sample size of this team on the floor, even just with the duo of Fox and Sabonis, and of course not at all with recent additions such as Kevin Huerter and Malik Monk and Keegan Murray. I really am concerned about this Portland defense, and ultimately I don't feel any better about this team when it was just Dame and CJ, and now they've just brought in Anthony Simons. They've made a few other additions, but I don't feel those additions are gonna propel this defense to be anything more than still a bottom half of the league defense, which in this Western Conference I don't think is going to do it.
Man, I just knew that you would have Portland so low, man. I just had a feeling about it.
It's the plight of the no defensive center, man. That's gonna make you go right down Devin's list real fast.
Fully, I will acknowledge that bias fully.
Hey, all right. Well, my number 10 is Sacramento. I have them over the Lakers for the simple fact that I think their players are gonna play. I think. Obviously, the Lakers, if AD and LeBron were playing like really good AD and LeBron all season, I mean, that team could be like a 6 seed. But, like, I just don't think they are. I think Sacramento, they've had a good offseason. I think De'Aaron Fox looked really good towards the end with Sabonis. Sabonis himself is an all-star level player. Had some good, like, role player additions. Keegan Murray can come in, and I think he's one of the most NBA-ready prospects to come out of the last draft. I think he can come and contribute day one and almost be like a third option for them in a certain aspect. And so, given all that, obviously it's not a playoff spot, but I think that this team can be a 10 seed, and I trust in their consistency, which is weird to say for the Kings, but like I feel like some team is going to fall off. Obviously, I think that's going to be the Lakers. Because, I mean, every season some team's player gets injured, and then that team just kind of has to take the season off. Whoever that may be, I think it'll happen, and I think the Kings will be that team to capitalize, and they'll get that little playing spot.
I hope you're right. I really do, Gabe. If the Kings make the play-in, they will be dancing in the streets of Sacramento for like a whole year. They will be happy with that.
Man. No doubt. He'll be Patrick Beverly after winning the play-in.
They'll be making the play-in. Yeah.
Just making it, man. Like, I love the points that you brought up, especially like I think Keegan Murray's gonna be really good. We'll talk about him more when we get to award predictions and stuff. But Yeah, I got Portland at 10. I know they don't have a defensive center. We're not really big believers in Nurk. I do believe in Dame, though. And I think Dame is going to come back looking for blood. And I've seen Dame carry a team that's not good defensively into the playoffs. And I think this team, talent-wise, is better than that squad. I can see them getting the 10 seed over the Kings. Even though a 10 seed is not amazing, but I can see them getting the 10 seed.
Yeah, I think who gets that 10 seed is going to be one of the more interesting battles to follow across the NBA next season. Sacramento was my 10 seed, but I wouldn't be shocked if this is Portland. I just really like Sacramento's offseason as you mentioned, Gabe and Tyrik. Like, they've added a lot more spacing around De'Aaron Fox. I think the Sabonis fit is good. Keegan Murray's selection was great. Just seeing Sacramento take a safe pick was honestly nice, given the concerns of draft selections in the past, although I will give them credit since the Marvin Bagley pick, they have drafted fairly well. But all that being said, I really like the fit of the pieces they have around De'Aaron Fox now. It finally they built a roster that had a purpose to be built around someone to have success, other than just throwing pieces together in hopes that it works. Hopefully that's enough. I have them as my 10 seed. Wouldn't be shocked to see them a little bit higher. Wouldn't be shocked to see them fall at 11. But defensively, still some concerns. But I think this offense is going to be really fun to watch every single night.
Okay, so I'm sure we all have the same 3 teams from 9 to 11. Is there any chance that one of these 3 teams can not be in the plane, but maybe like get to the 8th seed or maybe the 7th seed? Is there any chance in y'all's mind, or is the West just too good? Barring injuries, because without injuries, because we can't predict injuries are going to happen.
Yeah, I think even though you had them at 11, Gabe, I think if anyone can do it, it'll be the Lakers. I agree. I think they have the highest ceiling, whereas like Sacramento and Portland could make the play-in, but they probably don't have as high of a ceiling. But they probably don't have as much of a predictable way to fall off, whereas with the Lakers you can be a little bit more concerned about injuries given the last few years. But if the Lakers stay healthy and their new additions end up gelling well, sure, maybe they could be a 7-6 seed. I don't see Portland or Sacramento jumping up any higher though.
Yeah, literally, like I said before, like the Lakers, they could be, if everything went perfectly, they could be like a 6 seed. Like that's perfectly reasonable to think. It's just the fact that I have zero reason to put my trust in things going well there after what I've seen the past like 2 years, that I had them at 11. Because they're so inconsistent, there's so many question marks, it's just not a safe prediction to put them high. But yeah, they're the very high risk, high reward pick. If somebody predicted them to be a higher seed, they could do that and make you look like a genius, but they could also make you look stupid. They might make me look stupid. Maybe they're like securely in the playoffs and they're not even playing a play-in game at all. And I mean, I guess that would be shame on me if that happened. You know, everybody has incorrect predictions, but for me, it's the Lakers on the outside looking in because I just can't buy in. And then Sacramento at 10. And then I have Portland at 9 just because Dame coming back, still a fair amount of offensive firepower. I think their starting lineup across the board looks pretty solid. Added a little bit more depth. Not a great defense, but, I mean, we've seen Charlotte make the playoffs in the East plenty of times. I mean, in the play-in. And they didn't do well in the play-in. They got absolutely smashed once they got there. But can Portland's offense, when teams aren't really keying in as hard on specific matchups, can Portland's offense win them enough games in the regular season to get them into this situation? I think so. Now, will they get absolutely smashed by the 8th seed, or if you guys have them as a 10 seed by the 7th seed?
I don't know.
I mean, maybe Damian Lillard puts on the backpack and he does what he does against, like, what he did in that game against Denver the other year. Maybe he brings out something like that. You never know. But I could also see this team just in a play-in and getting absolutely destroyed. But will I think they get there? Yes.
Real quick, that's the thing about, like, Dame, and that's why I picked the Hawks to make it out of the play-in last year. There's some guys in the league where if it's one game situation, I don't care who's on their team, who they're going against, I might just take them. Dame is one of those dudes, man. Like, he will give you a chance to win a playing game for sure. I mean, we've seen it already before, but also quickly, like the Kings and the Trailblazers, I like both of their off seasons. I think they did a lot really good things, adding just quality pieces to the team. It's just the rest of the Western Conference and really the rest of the NBA as a whole is just so damn good. Like, you got to do a little more than Jeremy Grants and the, Kevin Herters of the world. Like, got to do a little more than that. But applause to those teams for making good moves. I have the Lakers at 9. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, man. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid again. Just a little bit. I got them at 9, not in the top 8, but I got them at 9. I didn't hate their offseason. I think it was better than the previous offseason where they went name chasing. I like getting Darvin Ham as the head coach. I think Frank Vogel was kind of scapegoated, but I think sometimes you do need a change in the locker room because it seems like it was kind of lost there. And I kind of like the way Darvin Ham is talking. I know he's saying all the right things, but I like it. I mean, I feel like he actually believes what he's preaching. And I think we will see it like on court. I think this team will have a different identity. I just don't think they're good enough to all of a sudden be, a top 6 team in the Western Conference, especially because there's going to be so many questions about Anthony Davis's health, which is always an issue. But I think when you have LeBron James, you have a chance. You have a chance. Still at his age, you still have a chance. So I think they can get to the 9th seed. And like we mentioned earlier, they definitely have a ceiling of being higher. It's just a matter of things going right for them, which things never seem to go perfect in LA. So I think a 9 seed is perfect for them with room to jump up, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. At least the good thing with the Lakers is this year is they have a few better defensive pieces around. They're not going to be starting DeAndre Jordan for 30 games of the year, which also helps. So there's definitely some reasons to be a little bit higher on this team than last year's Lakers. I think the Patrick Beverley addition was a nice addition as well. They have more than just Malik Monk as secondary creation and scoring outside of LeBron and Anthony Davis now as far as the guard position goes. So I think they should be in a position where they should at least make the play in this year. But like you said, room to go up a few spots. They were my 9 seed as well. But the fact that we all have a different team missing out on the play-in tournament gives the very strong indication of the fact that the battle for the play-in spots is definitely going to be a tight one in the West this season, or at least on paper it should be.
Yeah, I think these tiers are super defined. Obviously, the bottom 4 were all our bottom 4th, and this next 11 through 9, these 3 are very much that play-in tier. And then after this, it's like, I don't really know how I would tier the top 8 because now the top 8 is like, I think my top 3 are like a separate tier, but like 4 to 8 for me is for real, like right there in the thick of it. And honestly, my top 3 could fall down very easily if somebody overperforms. So while I do think they're a cut better, not a big cut.
No, the Western Conference is definitely going to be a Wild West situation next year, 1 through 8. And I feel that way based on who I have at number 8, because I really like who I have at number 8, and I wouldn't be shocked if they win a playoff series, but like they're the 8 seed. I really like this team that I have at 8. I think they have the potential to win a playoff series depending on who their matchup is. And I really like their offseason, but I have the Dallas Mavericks here. Their defense is going to be amongst one of the worst of the Western Conference playoff teams. And that's not to say it's going to be bad. It might even be a top half defense, but there's a lot of really good defenses ahead of them. They did lose Jalen Brunson, and as much as they did add some nice pieces around Lucas still, that is still something that has to be put into the equation. I really like the JaVale McGee signing. I think he'll really help some more rim protection in their defense. It allows Kleba and Dwight Powell to play slightly lesser roles, which is probably ideal. And Christian Wood, considering how little they had to give up to get him, is a really good addition. And I think the 2-man game he's going to have with Luka is going to be really good, as we've talked about many a times on the podcast over the summer. But ultimately, this is a team that is going to be even more reliant on Luka this year than they were last year, despite Spencer Dinwiddie being there, despite Tim Hardaway Jr. being there. There's no second guy alongside Luka that is even close to being a 20-point per game guy, unless someone takes a big jump, which maybe Spencer Dinwiddie gets back to pre-injury form, but that remains to be seen. Ultimately, I had to put them as the 8 seed, which, again, if they go out and they win a playoff series next year, I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised if anyone in the West wins a playoff series next year, even an 8 seed. But Dallas, unfortunately, were the victim of a strong Western Conference in my predictions. I had to put them at the 8 seed.
I mean, even last year, it was a similar situation with the 8 seed ended up. Well, I don't think the Pelicans were the 8 seed, but they came out of the play-in, so they were playing in the 8 seed position, and they took the 1 seed to 6 last year, so the team gets even deeper. Yeah, an 8 seed winning a playoff series, like, will that be crazy? I'm not sure, because the 8 seed might be close to a 50-win team. I mean, depending on how polarizing it is, maybe everybody's winning like 50 games, or maybe the top seeds are just like 55 wins, and it's like super close like that. But I think I'll go ahead and jump in just because I also have Dallas at number 8. I just think, just going off of like patterns and things I've seen in the past, I feel like when teams bring in those defensive veteran coaches, it's always a really good first year. You see it with like Tom Thibodeau in a couple different places, people you bring in, and it kind of changes that system. Jason Kidd came in, good defensive change for the Mavericks, but maybe that second year starts to slump a little bit. I think that's a pattern that's kind of been seen a couple times, not just with him, but just kind of with that style of organizational changes. And then also with them losing Brunson, who was probably their second best player last year. They have brought in good pieces, but when I look at their roster and then I look at the 7 other rosters above them, I just think the other 7 rosters are better. Now, could this team finish a lot higher? They could, because Luka, at minimum, unarguably is a top 4 player in this conference. Some might have him top 3, some might have him top 2 even. I don't know if anybody has him above Jokic as number 1, but, I mean, it's really close. And so, I mean, given that, yeah, you say, who's the best player on this roster and how far does that take them? Yeah, they could win a playoff series easily. We saw him take one off of the Clippers almost by himself twice. And then, obviously, last year they made their run to the Western Conference Finals. So this team has experience winning playoff series. And so, really good team. But the Wild West, man.
Yeah, I think what you said a few seconds ago, Gabe, is like the top 8 teams could probably all be 50-win teams. I think that's very possible this season in the West. I don't have Dallas at 8. I do have them in the play-in, not at 8, though. I have the Grizzlies at number 8. The uncertainty of Jaren Jackson Jr.'s injury really worries me. I'm not sure when he's supposed to be back, but I think he's so important to that team defensively. I think it's going to hit them, man. And they had so much success last season. I could see them taking a step back. Not so much like they're going to be a terrible team or something like the Hawks kind of were last year, but I could just see them dropping a few wins. Like, they're probably still going to be a 50-win team, but the West got so much better. And I think them missing Jaren Jackson is just going to take them a little time to adjust to that early on in the season. And I can see them falling to the 8 seed, which is not really to their fault. It's just, like Gabe said, it's the Wild West, man. It's so many good teams out there. And they feel they're going to fall victim in my book to, just how talented the West is.
Interesting.
That's reasonable. That's not my pick. But reasonable, very reasonable.
Look, but I will say this though. The last couple of years, I've been very low on the Grizzlies, and they prove me wrong every time. So they will probably do it again, but just off of face value, this is how I'm feeling about this team right now.
The Grizzlies are definitely an interesting team heading into next season, like you mentioned, because of that injury to Jaren Jackson Jr. And I've been of the case in the past that Jaren Jackson Jr. is arguably just as important to how good they can be as John Morant is for the impact he has defensively. I'll touch on them more later because we're not going to get to them for a little bit on my list yet, but that's definitely interesting to have them at 8. We have our 8 seeds being the Western Conference Finals appearance team from last year and a team that was the 2 seed last year.
That's just
I think
that lets you know what the West is going to be like this year.
You think the 8 seed picks are kind of like whoa, but I think my 7 seed pick is wild. This might be my most wild pick of the video.
You have the Suns, don't you?
I have the Suns at 7.
I also have the Suns at 7.
I have the Suns at 7 because listen, and here's my basis: is this team is still incredibly talented, but this internal turmoil is like ridiculous. Sarver situation, players not talking to each other, or players not talking to coach. Just all these things happening, the whole Jay Crowder situation. Now you just lost a starter. Now, should he have been coming off the bench, given I think Cam Johnson starting was a good decision? Yeah, but he didn't want to do that. So now you've lost a starting caliber player. All that being said, Devin Booker, still a great player. Obviously, I had Ayton pretty high on my list last week. Chris Paul, great player. Now, is he still kind of on the downtick a little bit? Obviously, yeah, it's only natural when you get that old. But will he still be a very impactful player, especially in the regular season? Absolutely. But with everything going on with this roster and this team, I don't know. Maybe Ayton gets traded halfway through the season, and then whoever they get in return for him, then there's a gelling period and they're dropping a couple games there. Or, I mean, just depending on whatever happens with this team, everything going on here, it doesn't really give you a lot of good signs versus bad signs. And then in a conference that's this tightly packed, I mean, you're splitting a couple hairs along the way, but I think it's enough to put them down at 7.
Yeah, I definitely can agree with a lot of your points here, Gabe, given I'm a bit biased here, given I also have the Suns at the 7 seed. The internal turmoil is one thing. Losing Jay Crowder is a little bit concerning to me too, because you're probably not going to get an impact player back for him. You're probably just going to get some pick or a salary filler at this point, or at least not a wing. So you're losing a wing, and we know how valuable wings are in this league. The wings behind Cameron Johnson and Micheal Bridges are going to be Torrey Craig and Josh Okogie. And I don't feel confident if a team has to rely on Josh Okogie to play regular minutes. And not that that's a big part of your team, but like wings are that important that like that wing depth off your bench is going to be crucial. It always has been. It always will be in this day and age of the NBA. And I think the loss of Jay Crowder is going to be more significant than some people might think. I want to reiterate, though, that like this 8 through 1 seed could legitimately have 7 wins between them. Like there is going to be a very tight battle between a lot of these seeds. Someone being at the 8 seed does not make them 8 times worse than someone in the 1 seed. But that being said, when I look at this Phoenix roster, the fact that Jay Crowder is going to be gone, the fact that DeAndre Ayton doesn't seem to be the most happy there, the fact that they have all the internal turmoil going on, I struggle to be as high on them this year as we were heading into the playoffs last year, starting the playoffs last year, and of course, inevitably before their rough outing in the playoffs. I had to put them at the 7 seed. Still a good roster. Still could get back to a Western Conference final, but they're a 7 seed.
Okay. I don't have them too far off either. I have Dallas at 7. You guys already touched on Dallas a lot. It's just going to be a couple games difference, man, like in my book. I still think I like their offseason, even though they did lose Jalen Brunson. But I'm kind of hopeful like Spencer Dinwiddie. He showed signs. I mean, he was coming off a major injury. I think he can kind of get back to maybe not what he was pre-injury, but somewhere close to that, in between like the highs of last season and what he was before. And I love the JaVale McGee addition. I think they have a legitimate lob threat to play with Luka that's better than Dwight Powell. And Christian Wood, I mean, whether he's coming off the bench or not, that's going to be another dynamic piece to have. You get Tim Hardaway Jr. back. Reggie Bullock's been really good for them. They have a very solid roster, and there might be more on Luka's shoulders, but, I mean, a lot of people want him to push for MVP, so this is the time to do it. So go ahead and show us if you're meant for that award.
Yeah, definitely. Luka's going to have all the opportunity to push for that MVP award this year. Whether he can get it as a 7 or an 8 seed remains to be seen, but it's going to be interesting what we see in Dallas this year. We'll see how much the loss of Jalen Brunson really plays an impact on things.
I was just going to ask y'all, like, do y'all think seeding will matter as much opposed to like maybe games won in the MVP? Because we kind of saw last year, like Jokic was a 6 seed, but team won 48 games, which is like around the same amount Embiid won, around the same amount Giannis won. Like, do y'all think they're going to look more towards records instead of seeding because the league is so talented now?
I'm not sure. I think a big thing with both of the 6 seed MVPs was narrative. Obviously with Russ, it was the triple doubles and KD just up and left, and that was a max player that was then just gone. Didn't get a ton in return. And then I think they traded Serge Ibaka before that season as well to the Magic for like Victor Oladipo and Sabonis, who both ended up being all-star players, but definitely were not that when they were there. And so it was like just Russ and these guys that were just kind of around. Second most impact player on that team was probably like Steven Adams, to be honest, who good player, starting quality player, but definitely far from a star. And then with Jokic last year, it was, I mean, he's getting this MVP and getting these wins with his second and third best player missing a lot of time, if not the entire season. And so it's like those narratives that factor in. And I think Luka's roster this year, they had a pretty good offseason, brought in some solid pieces, and they lost Brunson. But I don't know if there's any heavy narrative coming into this season where it's like oh, Luka averages like 28, 9, and 8 this coming season, and then wins MVP as a 7 seed. I feel like that was the big thing with the lower seeded ones, was that I really think this year, honestly, winning could even factor in more, given the fact that it is so tight. I feel like there's a very strong chance that, say, like 2 through 7, 2 through 8 is like really close, and then there's going to be that one team that's just beating everybody, and that team's best player might get MVP. I think that's a very likely scenario for this season.
That's definitely possible. I think the seeding will matter a little bit less as long as you're a top 6 seed. I think it's going to be tough to give an MVP to a guy who might not even make the playoffs. If you're giving it to a guy in a 7 seed, he's in the play-in tournament, he misses the playoffs. Again, it is a regular season award, but I think it's going to be tough from when you talk about that media narrative standpoint to start handing out an MVP award to a guy who's in the play-in tournament. I think if you're a top 6 seed, as long as your team is not a 6 seed with 42 wins, which I would be absolutely stunned if that's the case this year, then I think you're probably in with a shot. I think if you're below a 6 seed, it's probably going to be tough.
Yeah, I think we saw with Steph in 2021, he had really good stats. That team was down a couple guys, and he still got them to enough wins to be in that play-in, and like that was a big thing. But it just wasn't enough. It wasn't high enough. They were like, this guy might not be in the playoffs, and he didn't end up playing in the playoffs. They lost out in the play-in, and given that MVP is voted at the end of the regular season, I don't know if they have certainty giving it to a guy that hasn't clinched a playoff spot. Now, we've established the precedent like twice now in the past 5-6 years that a guy that's a 6 seed can win it with it, because narrative goes into it every year. Somebody's going to have that narrative. It's unavoidable. So, yeah, 6 seed is perfectly possible. Lower than that, I don't think you can win MVP without clinching a playoff spot.
Interesting. Something to keep an eye on this year for sure, man. We are at the 6 seed. Speaking of,
we're at guys that have clinched playoff spots. I'll go ahead and say, here's where I've got Memphis, team that we've talked about a little bit already. Obviously, Jaren's going to miss some time, which will, definitely take a couple wins off. Very impactful guy. Also, the thing, like, Ja is great. Ja missed quite a significant amount of games last year. And it wasn't all just one injury. It was all just kind of like, oh, he's out for a couple here. Now he's out for a couple here, kind of getting banged up pretty consistently. And so with that, I think if this team's really going to power through and keep up that level of success, not only in this conference, but missing Jaren, he's going to have to cut out some of those missed games to stay on the court a little bit more often. Can he do that? Definitely. I think that's definitely very attainable for him to do. Realistic goal. He's still young. I think he's still learning. He can get better at a lot of things when it comes to upkeeping his body and just staying on the court. That's just what happens with more experience in the league. Still growing into your body, still very young. And so as he does that, this team showed me one thing in particular last year as well, and that was that guys went down and they still found a way to get wins. That was pretty much the story of their entire season, from Ja missing all those games he missed to anybody else being out. It was always next man up mentality, and this team just always found a way to get it done. And so I don't think they can drop below a 6 seed from a 2 seed. More than that much drop off for a team that didn't really lose anybody significant. They lost D'Anthony Melton, brought in Danny Green, which Danny Green, the opinion of him definitely not very high. I think D'Anthony Melton is probably the better piece, but still, I don't think that moves the needle that much. And for a team that was missing their best player for almost 25 games last year, I think depending on how long you're missing Jaren, I don't know if that's dropping them significantly down into the play-in. But do I think it drops them? Obviously, having them at 6, yes.
Danny Green probably won't play either. More likely than not.
Probably not. No.
Probably not.
One thing about Memphis, though, they always have a player that steps up out of nowhere and has a pretty good season. I guess Desmond Bane was that guy last year. Like, I think just the drastic growth that he had in 1 year from year 1 to year 2 was kind of insane to see. Maybe Zaire Williams is that guy this year. Or, who knows? Somebody might just step up out of nowhere. They always find ways to just develop guys really well. So, yeah, that's why, like, my 6 to 8, I think Grizzlies can be a 6 seed. I think they can be an 8 seed as well. Same thing with the Mavericks. I think they could jump up even, because Luka's that good. and I had the Suns at 6. I know you guys had them at 7. The more I think about it, the less high I am on Phoenix. Compared to how I was talking about them last year. This team, man, I mean, we talked about last episode just how the turmoil is all there. We saw it in media day. More stuff just keeps coming out. You know, the Jay Crowder situation's hanging over them. It's just not looking good, man. But I think they'll be okay enough with their current roster to win a good amount of regular season games and probably get a 6 seed. But I think this might be their ceiling, honestly, with their roster currently constructed. I just don't have much faith in them because they didn't get much better over the offseason. They didn't really address any of the needs that they had. Didn't get an added shot creator. Lost JaVale McGee. Just not very high on them, man, especially with the way last season ended. Just so many question marks. And, yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see if this roster makes it the full season, if DA does get traded or not. What happens with Jay Crowder is all to be seen.
Is this the Kardashian curse?
It might be, man. It might be.
Uncertainty is definitely the name of the game in Phoenix, and that makes it tough to put them any higher. That definitely makes it tough to put them any higher. I have the Pelicans as my 6th seed. I wanted to put them higher. I wanted to put them higher.
Man.
This is going to be a really, really fun team next year. They're going to be one of the teams I watch the most next year. There's no doubt about it. However, good defenses and the top defenses are usually the teams that have the best records in the regular season. Are the Pelicans going to be fine defensively? Can they push to be a top half defense? Probably. But I don't think they're going to be anywhere near a top defense. I think all the teams above them, barring maybe one, are going to be better defenses than them, and the other one might be better defensively, and they're certainly going to be better offensively, despite how good the Pelicans are going to be on offense. So this is going to be a fun team. I think the combination of Zion, Brandon Ingram, and CJ is going to work absolute wonders. I think the depth on this team is great. They have some exciting young pieces. They could make some noise in the playoff again, as they did almost beating the Suns last year. But, hey, I'll take a 6 seed for them. They're going to make the playoffs. I think they'll avoid the play-in. But I don't have them getting any higher than this because that defense does hold me back a little bit. If Zion could show a lot better defense than his rookie season and Brandon Ingram can show how good he's been defensively throughout an 82-game season, then maybe I can buy in a bit more. But until then, I have them at the 6 seed.
Wow. I was expecting home court advantage, man. I really was from you. Okay.
So we're up to top five?
Top five.
Yeah.
Top third of the conference. Ooh, my number 5 might make y'all mad.
I think my 5 might be a little.
He got Minnesota at number 5.
My 5 might make you guys kind of mad, man. I'm just saying.
Oh, you got the Timberwolves, okay.
I got the Timberwolves at 5.
They're a lot higher on my list. I'll say that much.
I'll say that's
because all right. Remember we just had this conversation about can you win MVP as a top 6 seed? Yeah, so you guys' Anthony Edwards MVP narrative is not dead.
No, it does not. It does not fit our narrative, though. We said they have to be top team in the conference for Anthony Edwards to have that chance.
Here is my thing, right? When teams are newly built and have major changes in a way that significantly changes the dynamic of the team, usually there is a gelling period. Do I think this team finishes with probably like a top 3 record in the league in February? Honestly, I think that's very realistic. I think that's very attainable. I think as this team continues to mesh, that might work out great. As they go through this, Karl-Anthony Towns has pretty much always been a center for this team. Maybe played a little bit of power forward. He's been the Timberwolves center. He's moving into a new position. Rudy Gobert, just as a player, I think completely changes the dynamic of any team. Now, will that be for the better in the long term? Absolutely. But is that going to change this team's defensive scheme? Yeah, pretty significantly. And so these players are going to be doing a lot of learning, a lot of adjusting, and it's going to be a new situation. And once it clicks, I think it's going to click hard. I think this is a team that could be a 5 seed and make a run to the conference finals with some relative ease. With that being said, because of that gelling period, I'm going to put them as a 5 seed, but one of the better 5 seeds that we've seen in a long time.
Interesting. Okay. I have the Clippers at 5. It's real simple, man. Very deep roster, very talented roster. They have like at least 10 guys that can play legitimate minutes, like a very, very deep team. But regular season, I'm not really concerned about them because Kawhi is going to take his games off. Paul George might even take his games off. So I'm not thinking like as talented as this roster is, they're just going to far and away be the best team in the regular season because Kawhi's going to miss his games. Paul George might miss his. And what really matters for this team is once they get to the playoffs, the only thing is getting there. And I think they will get there comfortably. But as a 5 seed, nothing too flashy. I think that's about the range where they should be thinking about getting anyways, because any more than that, I think they're overexerting Kawhi too much, Paul George too much, and then they run the risk of those guys missing time in the playoffs. So Clippers at the 5 seed.
Yeah, I think that's a good spot for him. He touched on a lot of things. I'll mention on them in a minute when I get to them. Denver were my 5 seed. I have them here for relatively similar reasons. The fact that I think they're going to be a very good team. They're going to be one of the best offenses in the league. This defense looks better than it's ever been since Nikola Jokic has been on the roster. But ultimately, Micheal Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray, similar to Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, are both coming off of serious injuries. Specifically, MPJ with his back, I would expect to get brought back very slowly, quite possibly under a minutes restriction for weeks, possibly months of the season, given how much of a problem his back has been for a while. Similar with Jamal Murray, he's coming off a serious knee injury. He will probably get introduced slowly and at the beginning of the season. So this team's going to be very good. They're going to be better in the playoffs than their seed will indicate, but I have them as a 5 seed due to the fact that they're going to be bringing a few guys in back from injury, and they do have some new pieces that will have to be introduced into the rotation as well with Monte Morris and Will Barton out of town.
Love those points. I have them a little higher too, but very, very good points.
Home court advantage. Hey, a team getting home court advantage for me, probably the biggest surprise out of the teams getting home court advantage on my list. New Orleans Pelicans, man.
Have them at 4 too, man.
Give it to me. Give it to me. This team, very good playoff performance with an incredibly young team and their all-star player missing. Zion was literally an all-star in his first year playing basketball. Well, like his first full season playing basketball. If he comes back, and he's looked really in shape. If you've seen him on videos, he looks like he's in the best shape he's been in since Duke. Like, he looks great. I love their coaching scheme as well. Don't forget, they started last season, 1-14? Like, absolutely terrible start. And they were still able to finish in a situation that got them a play-in spot and got them into the playoff where they were competitive. They spent the second 2/3 of the season playing really solid basketball without their star player. And obviously, I just said with the 5 seed, a guy comes in that's a star, changes the team's dynamic. While some of these guys were rookies and haven't really played with Zion, a lot of the impact players have, especially with CJ being the biggest piece that hasn't played with Zion. I think the kind of player he is and how much veteran experience he has, I think that'll be a little bit easier of a mesh period, especially because CJ's not going to be looked at to be the best player on this team. He's going to be like a solid third option, just spreading the ball around, doing some scoring where he needs to. And obviously Zion's not playing 82, so he will have those opportunities to play bigger games. But across the board, this team has a great roster up and down, great depth, some really good defenders. Obviously, the team's defense as a whole might not be stellar, but they have some good defenders on the roster. Obviously, a lot of really explosive offensive firepower, and I think the dynamic to really win a lot of games, especially in the regular season.
I mean, you said everything that needs to be said, man. The only thing about this team, they have a lot of like the Clippers. They have a lot of guys that deserve minutes. I wonder how they're gonna find a way to get those guys minutes. Like, I want Trey Murphy to be a decent part of the rotation. I heard Dyson Daniels is looking really good in their training camp so far. How's he gonna get his minutes? Because got Jose Alvarado there. I mean, Devontae Graham's on the roster. Like, you got a lot of guys that are gonna be trying to get minutes, man. But we'll definitely see how it goes, man. But like Gabe said, man, they have all the makings to win, I think, a lot of regular season games, even though the defense might be a little bit of a question. Like you mentioned earlier, Devin, I think Zion will be more inclined to step it up defensively because they're actually playing for something now. And we see a lot of times when guys are in winning situations, they will step it up on the defensive side of the floor. I think we can see that here with the Pelicans.
Yeah, I definitely would not be surprised to see that. Contrary to your point, Gabe, I think there might be a little bit more time needed to get a little bit more chemistry here than needed. Zion hasn't really played with much of this group. He's played with like Jackson Hayes and Brandon Ingram, and that's literally it. Pretty literally everyone else in this roster has joined in the last 12 months. So I think there might be a little bit of an adjustment there, but like you guys said, this is going to be a really good team. I think despite the fact that they are going to need to get some chemistry and figure out the rotations, I think that will be figured out. I trust this coaching staff a lot more, at least, than the previous coaching staff to do the right job in that situation. So I think the Pelicans are set up for a very good season either way, whether it's as a 4 seed or as a 6 seed or somewhere in between. They're likely going to win at least 50 games and make the playoffs this season at the very least.
This is the most excited I've ever been about the Pelicans, to be honest. I mean, when they got Boogie, that was a really big thing, but then he got hurt and it was all down from there. This team, they somehow managed, while being a small market, to put together some really interesting rosters. Even when they were doing the whole thing with Zion and like Lonzo and all that, that was an intriguing team. Now this is another just really intriguing team. I think this might be the best one out of them all because of the fact that I think they have the best chance of at least staying the most healthy out of those teams they put together. But
I think it's that and the fact that they've shown us already, like, you know, they can play some winning basketball. Because like you said, Gabe, they started like 1-12 last year. And the rest of the season, they played pretty much 500 basketball, which is very solid. So getting a full season of that is going to be definitely fun to see. And like you said, Willie Green's doing such a good job coaching this team and definitely miles ahead of what Stan Van Gundy was doing.
Oh, for sure. Easily, very easily.
I had the Clippers at number 4. I don't have anything else to add. You said it all, Tyrik. Good team, ton of depth, great star power, but their star power is probably going to miss 20 or 30 games apiece. So they're a team built for the playoffs. They're not going to be too concerned about finishing as one of the top few seeds.
They have so many people. Like I forgot Jason Preston was like an early second-round pick for them. Like I saw him playing in the preseason. I forgot about him. Like he's still on that team.
Yeah,
got a lot of talent over there.
Yeah, it's crazy because he's like at best a 12th or 13th guy in the rotation over there. It's crazy, absolutely crazy.
Super deep team. Go ahead with your number 3 then, Devin, since you didn't get to talk about the Clippers.
My number 3 is the team that you guys had way lower. This is where I have the Memphis Grizzlies.
Wow.
I do really believe in the impact that Jaren Jackson Jr. has on this team. However, I do also believe in the fact that this team, arguably other than the Raptors in previous years when they've struggled with injuries, they've been one of the best teams at next man up mentality. Memphis have been one of those teams over the last few years as well. They just always seem to get the job done regardless of who's out. We saw it last year with Ja, and although I think Jaren's uniqueness of how impactful he is on the defensive end is a little bit more difficult to replace, I still like what they have enough that they're going to be a good defensive team still without him. And the talent they have around him is still so good. They have so much young talent that despite that loss, they're going to have so much internal improvement that I think it's going to offset a lot of the potential downfall you would have of Jaren Jackson being out of the roster. I wouldn't be surprised if Desmond Bane takes a little bit of a jump again this year. I mean, Jaw's still super young, as good as he was last year. Wouldn't be shocked to see more improvement from him. Dylan Brooks looks like he has a 10 times better shooting form this year, which hopefully can translate to him being a little bit more efficient. Not to mention all the young guys that you mentioned earlier, Tyrik, Zaire Williams, who could potentially take a leap. I think this team's just very well built, very well coached. They have a great mentality. This team gives you 110% effort on every play, on every night. And those are the types of teams that you're going to see rise to the top of a very tough conference. As much as I am concerned about the injury of Jaren Jackson Jr., and we have such a wide range on when he might come back, I think either way, Memphis are going to be one of the top teams in the West. And so I have them at the 3 seed.
I don't hate it at all, man, because all the things you just said, like they just always seem to, you mentioned earlier, next man up mentality. That's the team right now that embodies that the best. And they'll probably, like Xavier Tillman will probably come in and play very, very good minutes for them. Or Brandon Clark might continue his resurgence after having that down year a couple years ago. Like they just got so many guys, man, and they're so well coached. It's a very well run organization. It wouldn't surprise me if they got back up to like a home court advantage type team, but the injury does concern me a lot, man, because like you said, Jaren Jackson's uniqueness on the defensive side of the floor is something that's just not easily replaceable at all.
I think it's really a toss-up. I think this is a team that always just manages to find a way to win. And while obviously I think we are taking some nuanced considerations in, I think the Grizzlies are a team that performs better in practice than maybe they look on paper. And so I think they are one of those teams that can show out and do better than they're sort of predicted to do pretty consistently. And so, yeah, I really don't hate them at top 3. Obviously, they were 2 last year, so like that's still them moving down even then. And so, is that crazy to have a team move down 1 seed? Absolutely not. Like that's a perfectly reasonable pick. And so, higher than we had them, but I wish I could have had them there myself because I really like watching that team play. My number 3, however, is it's Denver. I think Denver they pulled the 6 seed last year, and now they get their players back. Now, are they going to come back 100%? Are they going to come back and play every game? No, but last year they weren't playing at all. So it's still an improvement there. I think Jokic is still Jokic. And eventually, as they get into the swing, I think they're going to be another team that as the season progresses and those guys get back into rhythm and things really get rolling, they're going to finish the season strong. And that's really, I think that'll be what projects them to be a 3 seed. I think they'll probably spend most of the season around that like 5-6 range. And then at the end, they'll rattle off a really good January, February, early March, and then secure a top 3 spot.
Yeah, they're my 3 seed too. Aside from the obvious of Micheal Porter Jr., being back, and then Jamal Murray being back as well, I love the moves they made this offseason, just upgrading their role players, man. Bruce Brown was a big upgrade. Also like the addition to KCP. I really love those additions because the team kind of lacked defensive wing depth. When you're asking Austin Rivers to really be your primary defender some nights, it's not really something that you want on your team. But now you got KCP, who we know is a very good defender, man. He's going to work on that side of the floor. Same thing with Bruce Brown. And then you obviously have the 2-time MVP, Jokic. I think he showed single-handedly he can get this team near 50 wins. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they can get a 3 seed this season.
No, it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. And like you said, their offseason additions were very good. KCP is coming off of arguably his best offensive season of his career. He's going to add a little bit more spacing alongside that defensive help. And Bruce Brown's one of the best cutters in the league. And he's going to be playing next to one of the best playmakers, if not the best playmaker in the league. So despite Bruce Brown and KCP potentially being looked at more on the surface as defensive additions, which they definitely will be, they're still going to help this offense as well. So yes, 2 very good additions. I think they're set for a very good season. As long as MPJ and Jamal Murray can stay on the floor, then this is going to be a really good team next year.
Forgot to mention Bones Highland too. It's like they traded away Monte Morris because I think they believe he's ready to take a nice jump, and I think that's going to happen as well.
Yeah, definitely.
These first round matchups are about to be insane. So far, like with my list, the first round has Timberwolves versus Pelicans and Memphis versus Denver. Like those series would both be incredibly entertaining. Watching Ja and Jamal Murray go back and forth in a playoff series, not to mention the whole Jokic aspect, like that could be a great one. And then obviously Timberwolves, Pelicans, those are both teams that I think all 3 of us have our eyes on super heavily coming into this year.
I think however you shape it up, every first round matchup should at least look compelling on paper.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I mean, my 8 seed, the fact that the Dallas Mavericks are my 8 seed and are at least 7 or 8 for all 3 of us, like Luka versus anybody is compelling. Luka versus anybody has a chance to win. And so, yeah, if that's the bottom of your conference, you're looking pretty good.
My 8 seed was the second best team in basketball last year. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. I know you guys both have the same top 2.
We do.
I do not.
I think I know where you're going with this. I think I know.
I mean, if you've paid attention to who I've not said yet,
then
you should know where I'm going with this. But I wonder, because there's a chance that we all have the same number 2, though.
There is a chance.
I guess I'll break the ice. I might be a hater. I might be. But I got the defending champs in number 2. Golden State
Okay.
Warriors. I flirted with the possibility of having them lower just because I don't know how much they will care about the regular season. But then again, I had the thought in my mind, well, this is going to be Clay's first full season back. Steph's been talking a lot this offseason, so maybe he's like, let me try and have another MVP push. You never know, man. And Draymond Green, too. Like, they got their core guys back for a full season for the first time in a long time. So they might take it a little more serious than I was expecting. So I could see them winning like anywhere from like 56 to 58 games. I could see that happening. Still going to be a really good team. I would probably say they should be the favorite to come out the Western Conference this season. Even though they lost some guys in the offseason, but I think they'll be fine with guys stepping up like Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody. I think those guys will step up very well. Jordan Poole to the bench for a full season is going to be really nice for them. Such a good team, such a good organization, man. They're going to be right there in the end to compete for a championship. So I got Golden State at the 2 seed.
That was also my 2 seed. As you mentioned, it's going to be a good team. Their guys are back healthy, ready to go for the season. Hopefully they can just have another good run at it, because there is a legitimate possibility that this is the last year that we see at least this group is currently constructed all together with Wiggins and Draymond and Jordan Poole all nearing the end of their contracts. But I think they're going to be another really good season for them. They should do a little bit better in their seeding because of entering this year healthy, with Clay being back ready to go, with Draymond being back ready to go. No one's really been dealing with any lingering injuries throughout the offseason, so they should be one of the top teams in the West. And for me, they end up at number 2.
Yeah, we all have the same number 2 team. I've got Golden State at number 2. This team, I mean, they pulled off a 3 seed last year with Steph Curry in a slump for half the season, Clay not coming back until after the turn of the new year. And, I mean, James Wiseman didn't really play last season. Like, there were a lot of things going on. Yeah, he didn't play last season. I mean, Draymond missed some time. He was Defensive Player of the Year, like almost unanimously. Then he missed a significant amount of time. And they still pulled off a 3 seed. All that, the young guys stepping up to hopefully take in and kind of make up for what they lost in the offseason. I think this team can really turn around and run it back for, I mean, all intents and purposes. It's like they're just Golden State, really good. Obviously, I don't think they're going to be pushing for that 1 seed, but they're such a good team that I think that they'll just casually secure 2.
I thought you would have him at 1, to be honest, Gabe. That's where I thought you was going.
Me too.
I did not.
If I'm not mistaken, the only team you haven't mentioned, is it the Clippers?
It is the Clippers, yes. It is the Clippers.
Well, I guess we'll go ahead and
take your case.
LAC, man.
Okay. Look at this roster, okay? I think if they're smart about it, this team can really make a 1 seed push. I think it's something they might be interested in doing. Obviously, Kawhi's not going to play every game. If he takes his load management and is smart about it, which I think he did several times in Toronto, the games that he's missing are going to be games that this roster can win without him playing. Paul George has the goatee back. That's indie mode. That is indie mode, Paul George. I think he's going to be back on a mission. I think every time we've seen Paul George playing recently, he's looked incredibly good. He's looked like a clear 1 seed. We all had him as the best shooting guard in the entire league. And then I think Devin had Kawhi as his number 1 small forward. So this team, their 2 best players, both came in at number 1 on at least somebody's list on the positional rankings. Like, that's no small thing. But then if one of those guys isn't playing, if they're doing load management, they might stagger it to where one doesn't play and the other one does. And that's a team that can really win games with this supporting cast. They brought in John Wall, who I think is low risk, super high reward. Obviously, they've still got Reggie Jackson, Luke Kennard, Terrence Mann, Norman Powell, and Marcus Morris are starters who can drop 20 on any given night. Brandon Boston might come in and do some things. Amir Coffey, Roko's a good defender to have in the wings. Nicholas Batum's a good defender to have in the wings. Up and down the roster. Haven't even talked about having Zubac still there to play some big minutes for you if you match up against a legit big. He's not going to be the best stopper in the world, but you have a guy for that who can do some really good things. But this team has so many good defensive pieces that they're not going to allow a ton of dribble penetration. That's really the biggest thing is these teams with these poor centers that have that issue, it's because they're allowing a lot of dribble penetration, and then the center just can't stop it. But look at who this team has defending on the perimeter. Most of those guys are really capable out there, if not highly above average. And so just with the depth, this is a team that we saw. Paul George missed a bunch of games last year. Kawhi didn't play at all, and they still got a lot of wins out of that. And so just the fact that this team is at least 10 deep of players that could start on a lot of rosters, like this team is going to have at least 2 or 3 bench players that would start on a lot of teams. That's impressive. And so for me, even if Kawhi plays 55 games and Paul George plays 60, the depth of this team, if they pick and choose where they're load managing well, they could really pull out a 1 seed.
It's definitely possible. Definitely possible.
You sound like a Clipper spokesperson, man. That was a great argument. Like you almost convinced me. I'm not gonna lie. That was a great argument.
that was a good argument for sure.
I like it, man. I like it.
That depth, like you said, is so crazy. Like I gotta try and find the post. Here it was. I put a poll on my channel over a month ago, and I got my channel to vote on what was their most likely starting lineup. So then based on what I thought would be the 5-man bench unit from that, I wanted to see how many games they started over the last 2 years, and they'd started like over 50% of their games over the last 2 years. Like their bench has been regular starters. Like,
yeah.
It's their depth is absurd. And that's the biggest argument, even with the load management, for how good they could be for sure.
Right. There's games where like Kawhi and Paul George are resting and they're playing 5 starters with like 2 more off the bench.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like you look at that roster, Amir Coffey is a valuable bench piece, and he might not even play on some nights if they're fully healthy because he's the 11th guy. Like it's absurd. It's so absurd.
Usually I would be concerned with having that much talent, but I think Ty Lue is that good with egos, and I think he'll be able to manage it, man. I think he will.
Yeah, he's a great coach, and obviously we're talking about the load management. These guys are going to miss some games, and so some of those other guys that might be the 11th guy, you're going to have plenty of games where you get minutes.
Yeah, definitely will.
Indeed. Dave, do you want to take it away, man? Because we know who the 1 seed's going to be this season. So
we do know it's going to be the boys in Minnesota with the best defense in the league.
Of course,
Alongside
the guy
Rudy
from Canada.
Gobert.
The guy from Canada got that northern team getting the what's.
The man who's been to Minnesota, one of the few states he's been to, is picking the Timberwolves. The biggest argument for this team is going to be that defense, and that's the biggest reason why I have them at the number 1 seed. Historically, the number 1 seeds are usually some of the best defenses in the league. We saw it last year with Miami. We saw it last year with Phoenix. They were 2 of the best defenses for the entire season, and Boston were nearly a 1 seed. They just weren't the best defense for the entire season. They were the best defense for a bit less than 2/3 of the season. Ultimately, like you said, Gabe, there is going to be a bit of a gelling period. However, I think it is going to be a little bit less than some people might think. Rudy obviously is going to be coming in and being the center, and now Karl-Anthony Towns is the power forward. However, especially on the offensive end, I think that adjustment is a little bit less than you would otherwise think, because the Timberwolves weren't exactly playing with a power forward who was out there spacing the floor last year, specifically once Jared Vanderbilt went into the starting lineup. So you weren't exactly having Cat be in a situation where he had to spend more time in the paint because you had 4 guys out who were spacing the floor. You had Cat who would play offensively as the quote unquote power forward who would spend more time out on the perimeter, while you would have Vanderbilt down in the dunker spot or in the low block, because Vanderbilt's just not shooting threes like that. So I think the adjustment offensively is going to be a little bit less than might be anticipated, except for now D'Angelo Russell's just going to have an extra lob threat, and arguably a better one who just has a little bit more height to him, although obviously nowhere near the offensive touch or the hands of Karl-Anthony Towns. But now he can have a pick and pop or a pick and roll, depending on who he has on the floor with him. Defensively is obviously going to be adjustment for Karl-Anthony Towns. But for everyone else, they just get to know that, hey, I get to be a little bit more aggressive, and if I screw up, well, then I have arguably the best rim protector of all time sitting behind me. So if anything, there's going to be changes to their defense, but it's just going to help their perimeter defense be even better. And obviously, Rudy Gobert is going to make their interior defense a hell of a lot better than it was beforehand. Offensively, they were already one of the better offenses in the league. Now, you have lost a few pieces. You've lost Malik Beasley as the most notable one to that offense. But Jalen Noel should step in and have another good season. Taurean Prince was playing some of the best basketball of his career late last year. Kyle Anderson should come in and give them some very good wing minutes as well. So they should be fine to supplement some of the lost offense. And, of course, the biggest piece of it all is going to be Anthony Edwards. Honestly, if the Timberwolves are the 1 seed, I would not be surprised at all to see Anthony Edwards be at least top 3 or top 5 in MVP voting. Given my prediction is the Timberwolves is the 1 seed, that would indeed be my prediction. I wouldn't be shocked to see him average 25, 24 a night next year. Not to mention the fact you have the best center, one of the best offensive centers in the league outside of Towns and Embiid. You then have D'Angelo Russell, who hopefully can just play like his regular season version and not the playoffs. Throw in the development of Jalen Noel, throw in the development of McDaniels. There's so much to like about this team, but specifically that impact they're going to have on the defensive end, that's what gives them the 1 seed for me.
Honestly, nothing more needs to be said, man. Nothing more needs to be said. Just to piggyback off the Anthony Edwards talk, though, because I really do think he's going to take that John Morant type year 3 jump. I can see that happening. And it's historically a good thing to bet with top picks breaking out in year 3. Like we've seen it happen time and time again. And I think Anthony Edwards gave us just a glimpse of how great he will be, what we saw in the playoffs. And I think he's going to take that and build off of that, man. He's got the low cut now. He has Rudy behind him on the defensive side of the floor. And that just means offensively, he's going to have a little more freedom too. And Rudy's one of the best screen setters too. So he's going to make sure guys get some very good looks, and he's going to be, finishing those role opportunities as well. I think it's going to make things easier for Cat on the offensive side of the floor as well, to where he could probably just spot up a lot more times instead of having to set the screen, pick and pop. There's just so much dynamic things that can happen with this team on both sides of the floor. Now, when we get to the playoffs, that's going to be some questions. We'll see how they do perform in the regular season, but I think they have the makings of being a top seed. I think they have the makings of a team that probably has the highest ceiling when it comes to games won this season. I think they can win 60 games. I don't think that's really crazy to say. I can see that happening, man. I'm like Devin is. I'm very high on Minnesota, mainly because of Rudy and how great we think Anthony Edwards will be this season.
You guys make incredibly compelling points. Like, I do think the Timberwolves will be a great team. I think it's really like it's just so hard to drop a team down versus another team that might be towards the top. Like, I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, yeah, the Timberwolves could really finish higher than the Nuggets easily and break into my top 3. And like, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I think because like you guys talk a lot about Anthony Edwards' development. I think that's what it takes for them to be a 1 seed. But could they pull off a 2 or a 3 with just Anthony Edwards taking a minor jump, Cat continuing to play great, D'Lo plays good, and I mean, just with what they already have, like, yeah, they could be really solid. I think they're a team who, in my opinion, might even be built a little bit more for the playoffs than the regular season, but still not taking away anything. They'll be really fun to watch across the board.
Yeah, man. I already watched a lot of Minnesota last year because I was on the bandwagon before it was popular, man. I was like, this is gonna be a playoff team. I was bought in, but now this season I might not miss many Timberwolves games, man. They will be on my television a lot.
Definitely.
The Timberwolves being that good, it doesn't fit my Wiggins narrative, man. I don't know if they can be better than Golden State. I don't know if they can be better than Golden State, but they can be really good, man. That first round, though, like literally all of our lists, I think, have really interesting first round matchups. I mean, mine is Clippers Mavericks 3. That'll be a hell of a series, I think, just because, I mean, the first 2 were great. Why wouldn't the third one be? Then Suns versus Warriors. That's a good first round matchup. Memphis Nuggets and Timberwolves Pelicans, I already talked about. It's like, I'm so excited. I know the regular season hasn't even started, but I'm so excited for this year's playoffs.
I have T-Wolves and Grizz, Golden State, Dallas, Denver, Phoenix, and Pelicans, Clippers.
All of those except for Pelicans Clippers have happened before, so that's a lot of rematches.
Yeah, a lot of rematches.
You have a Western Conference Finals rematch.
Yeah, it was arguably the most exciting first round of last year's playoffs rematch.
Yeah.
Denver Phoenix was a sweep, but Denver didn't have their guys, so I don't know, man.
Jokic revenge tour.
Pelicans Clippers would be a fun ass series, man.
That would be a really fun series.
Two really deep teams. Honestly, like usually when it gets to the playoffs, teams go like that 8-man rotation. But that might be a playoff series where teams are going 11 deep because they're both just got they both got that many guys.
It'd be tough to have really good players just sitting on the bench, man.
Yeah.
Maybe Pelicans a little bit less, but still, their depth is not.
Even if the Pelicans shorten their bench, like Larry Nance has got to be playing, Jackson Hayes is probably playing, Trey Murphy's probably playing, and then maybe you only go one deep with the guards and you go only one of Daniels or Alvarado, but you could run both of those too. Like, they can go 10 deep easily.
Alvarado's definitely got to get playoff minutes, man. He became the heart and soul of that team last year. I think he's in the rotation. Unless he comes out and he like has a severe slump next year, but he's the kind of player where like
pretty much does what he does.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I don't think like he's a guy that's really slump prone, because being like some like knockdown shooter or something or like some crazy scorer wasn't really his role.
He just takes open jumpers, floaters, and gets steals and disrupts other teams' point guards.
They thought they figured him out, but he's gonna come back.
He's Pat Bev light. Like, that's really what he is.
Pretty much.
Hey, that's not a bad thing to have. I got the real Pat Bev finishing at 11, so.
Got him at 9, man. The Lake Show. I really like the Lakers also. I didn't not like love it, but I thought it was cool. Like, better than previous. It's just Anthony Davis, man. That's the only dude that's holding me back.
Yeah, he is the key to how high of a ceiling they can have. Yes. If he can play 70 games and he has a good season, then I wouldn't be surprised if they're a 6 seed. But
yeah, I feel like my list is prone to making people mad, just because I was like, there's a couple of teams that I was just crazy low on, like the Thunder is the second worst team in the conference. The Lakers not even making the play-in. Like the Timberwolves at 5 when y'all got them at 1.
This year's standings predictions are just prone to making anyone mad, because any fan that is high on their team, as most fans are going to think highly of them, and there's just too many good teams to put every good team high. It's just the nature of it. It's going to be the same thing in the East. Like, I got teams in the East that it's like, damn, I wouldn't be surprised if you make it to the finals, but you ain't getting home court advantage. That's just how it is.
The East is actually like that, though. The Miami was a 5 seed in the bubble, weren't they? I guess nobody had home court, but they entered the playoffs as a 5.
Same thing in my Western Conference. Like, Denver make the finals? Okay. Like, they wouldn't be my first pick, but wouldn't be shocked. They ain't getting home court advantage in my predictions.
Denver, they're the team on my list where I'm like, I got them at 3, but I think that's the pick that could make me look the worst, because I don't know, they might mess around and be in the play-in.
Nah, there's no way.
Mine's is definitely the Grizzlies. That could make me just look like an idiot once again.
Yeah,
being low on Memphis is always dangerous.
Grizzlies falling 6 seeds is kind of crazy, but I got Phoenix falling 6 seeds. So does Dev. So
yeah,
it's pretty close.
Yeah, we all had good reasons though. Like, it's not just like we just think they're gonna fall. Like, we had very valid reasons to why.
Hey man, I had at least one of you guys had the Clippers at like 5, and
that was me.
Yeah. You had him at 5, I had him at 1, and you were like, "Dang, you almost convinced me." So it's that close.
Almost did, man.
It's that close. But yeah, you guys are giving your Timberwolves reason. I'm like, I don't have a counter argument.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot of really good points.
I wrote out like mock records, and like 1 through 7 is separated by 6 games.
Mock record, yeah. I get it. It really depends on how bad the bottom is. It's like, if the Spurs, Thunder, Jazz, Rocket, you see all these teams probably go 2-0 against like the Pacers, teams like that in the East. Like, you could really stack up a lot of wins against the bottom feeders.
Yeah, that'll be the biggest thing to determine how big the win totals get for all the good teams, because it's going to be no one's really going to dominate against any of the great teams. I don't think, at least. I don't think anyone's that far head and tails above everyone else. But if like Indiana start winning like 15 games and Utah start winning 18 and the Spurs start winning 15, and that's when it'll get interesting. But
I really want the Clippers to win like 67 games and Paul George wins MVP, bro. That'd be crazy. Like, if you have Kawhi Leonard on your team and you win MVP, like, that'd be an insane narrative.
that would be funny.
Pandemic P narratives would be destroyed all for good, man.
No doubt. Need your thoughts on the Tyler Hero extension, Tyrik. I didn't get to talk to you about that yet.
Tyler Hero. 130 amps. Wow. That's a lot of money, man. That is a lot of money. I like Tyler Hero too. He better be starting this year. I'll say that. He should be starting if you're paying him that much money, man.
30 mil for a bench player is wild.
I think he has to be, because I think Jimmy ends up starting at the 4 this year, because otherwise they have no wings off the bench.
Yeah.
So,
He looked like their best offensive player through most of the regular season. Like,
yeah,
really
I don't hate it. I don't hate it because I think he still has room to grow as a player. So I don't hate it. You kind of got to pay your guys when they're still there. Do I think he should have got more than RJ Barrett? I don't know. Was it a 4-year or 5-year deal?
4-year. 4-year.
So he did get more than RJ Barrett. I don't know about that. I'm not 100% sure.
I think that contract, like, obviously, they kind of like sold on all the big sweepstakes. They were rumored to get all these different guys, and then did not. I will say it does open them up down the road. They gave him that much money. Now, if it gets time to where he's trade eligible and there's a max player on the roster, or like a max player that like wants to get traded for, his contract is now a lot easier to trade him to make contracts work. So maybe that could factor into it a little bit going forward. Now they have like that guy who's going to make the money match.
He just kind of
he was going to make the money match regardless, like whether he got this or 25 mil a year.
Still, even so, now it's just at the end of the day, if that's your end goal, it's just a little easier. It's a little easier, and I like, because they sold out on all these guys. I mean, who are they going to give that money to? I think at this point, if you're getting any of those guys, you're trading Tyler Hero. So whether you were giving him this much or giving him 25 mil a year, I don't know if that really changes.
They didn't have money to give anyways. It's just, you can pay your guys though.
Right.
But, yeah.
Man,
Yeah,
he just reset the market though for like these young up and coming players like Jordan Poole.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing I was thinking when I saw that deal. It's like Miami had to give him what they had to give him to keep him. It is what it is. Should he have what I have ideally got him for last year? But at the end of the day, they had to re-sign him. It's a good re-signing. But like specifically when you mentioned Jordan Poole, like they got to make a decision about him and Wiggins and Draymond.
Mm-hmm.
And now Jordan Poole's going to come to the bargaining table and be like, yeah, I want 35 mil a year. And that's what's going to happen, right? That's going to be the starting point, because Hero got it a year before.
And Bob Myers is going to laugh. Bob Myers is going to laugh in his face like, I'm not giving you 35 million.
He's gonna sign and trade Jordan Poole to get KD back again.
That's how those negotiations are going to start now. That really set the market.
If Jordan Poole has baddies courtside every game, I said this before the pod. If Jordan Poole has the baddies courtside every game, he's a max player. And I mean that with the most sincerity in my heart. If he plays like that for 82 games.
Those young ladies were mid, by the way. They were not baddies. They were mid.
At the end of the day.
His type. He did go to Michigan. That's probably his type.
Hey, beauty is subjective, and that's what Jordan Poole thought. So, hey, if it only takes some mid for him to play like that, he's a max player.
Imagine if you got Rihanna courtside.
He's a max player. Hey, KD ain't never had I don't even know if KD's ever had a girlfriend, and KD still was like staring down Rihanna, going crazy. So
I saw a wild tweet earlier that I'm not gonna repeat on here. I'm gonna find it and I'm gonna send it to the group chat because it had me in tears, man. But yeah, there's just no way that Jordan Poole is gonna get 35 million, man. Like, nah, not from the Warriors. No chance.
No, not from the Warriors. There's no way. There's no way.
Bro,
Wiggins will get what Wiggins needs, but after that, I think it's a little bit more up in the air as to who stays and goes.
At a certain point, it's almost like even if they wanted to pay more in the luxury tax, how much until this team hits the hard cap? Like,
that's a good question.
There's gotta they've spent a lot of money, and they're very willing to spend a lot of money. Which is, I mean, that's why they've won 4 titles in the past decade. But still,
the tax.
There's only so much.
157 million.
There's only so much money.
Do some live maths real quick. They might not be far off already being at that.
Yeah, they're really lucky they moved to San Francisco and have all this revenue, because even with all that, this team is still making a ton of money. They've increased. They've increased their brand value to not that good to top 5 in the league in a decade.
So here's how things currently stand. Of course, numbers will be different next year when they start making extensions or re-signing guys. But the rule goes, when a team becomes hard capped, it cannot exceed the tax apron at any point during the rest of the league season. And that tax apron was set for 157 million for this upcoming season. The Warriors, assuming team and player options are picked up, which they might not be, but assuming they are, they're at 160 million already for next season. Now that assumes that Draymond opts into his player option, which remains to be seen. But if he does, then they need the tax apron to go up 4 mil just to go out and sign Wiggins and Jordan Poole. So
if Draymond really thinks he's getting a max contract, he's crazy. He's crazy.
We know Draymond's crazy.
He's more of a mad scientist than crazy, bro. He does some crazy stuff, but he's a genius.
Okay, yeah, I can.
Yeah, that's fair.
Draymond, he's obviously he's still a very impactful player. I mean, I just talked about it earlier in the episode, defensive player of the year until he got hurt for a reason. Still great, but max, I can't go that far.
I don't know if he's the type of guy you want to give a max to at near 34 years of age.
Yeah, I didn't even mention that. I don't even think last year's Draymond was a max player. Not to mention what Draymond's going to be on year 4 or 5 of that deal.
Is a max for him like a 190 max, or is it more?
It would depend on if he made All NBA or All Defense this year, probably.
Ooh,
He'd probably
be all defense. He would probably be all defense. Yeah.
If he plays 60 games or more, he's going to make all defense. It's Draymond.
Just off of reputation.
Hey, I mean, he was just playing at that level last year. So even if he just if he can just be, if he's 90% of what he was last year, and plays more games than last year, he's making a defensive team.
The reported amount is apparently 164 over 5 years. Is what it would be currently.
He's 33 right now, about to turn 34.
He's 32. He'll be 33 in almost 3/4 by the time next season starts.
Oh.
Yeah, no. That's not, you're not getting that.
You'd be paying him until he's 39.
No,
basically.
Nope.
Not paying that man $41 million when he starts.
If he wants a 3-year max, I think that's probably a little bit more of something that both sides could agree to, because I don't mind having him on big money for the next 2 or 3 years, but if you have him on 30 plus for the next 5 years, that's when it gets a bit tough.
This is going to sound crazy though, but if it's a 3-year max for Draymond versus re-signing Wiggins, who's prime age, and Poole, who's still young,
I'm re-signing the younger guys.
Yeah,
I think at this point, yeah, I don't know if the ceiling of what Draymond can be at age 36 is higher than what Jordan Poole is going to be at 26, and what Wiggins will be during that stretch as well.
Yeah.
Plus, you got Kuminga, you got Moody.
Yeah.
I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I would imagine that priority number one for them next offseason is probably Wiggins. And
That's an all-star starter, man.
And I would guess that the hope is that Kuminga looks good enough in year 2 that they feel comfortable that if Draymond wants too much money, Kuminga can start being the guy who starts being the primary power forward, and they can roll forward from there. That's what I would anticipate at least.
I agree.
Draymond's a Celtic.
Draymond is not a Celtic. I will not link Draymond to the Boston Celtics. I could not see him in a Celtics uniform. I could see him going playing with like LeBron. He loves LeBron.
That's almost worse. That's almost worse than saying he's a Celtic is saying that Draymond Green is a Laker.
He's a Laker.
Yeah, Draymond's a tough guy to see on any other team, partly just because he's been with Golden State forever. But
I don't know.
He fits in that Golden State system, man. It's tough because he's not going to have the same impact anywhere else. He just won't.
Before Draymond got to the NBA, he wore green. Maybe he's linked to. Maybe he is a Celtic. Maybe he goes to the Bucks. Hey, listen, Draymond. That's a Michigan guy right there. Went to Michigan State. Maybe the Pistons rebuild is going great. They're starting to compete, and Draymond comes in as a veteran presence, and he's like coaching up their guys to be better defenders and really solidifying them. Maybe
so that's going to be a Udonis. So he's going to be a Udonis Haslam.
Maybe he is, but respectfully, Draymond's had a better career than Udonis Haslam, though. To be honest.
Oh, so, for sure.
No, for sure.
100%.
Yeah. So
and he's even the Hall of Famer, and one of them isn't. So.
Draymond, I mean, I could see it. Maybe he wants to go back to Michigan and chill. Would he take a little less money to go home, or maybe they can give him more money because they don't have as much money spent as Golden State does. I don't know. Remains to be seen. But
look, that brother better take a pay cut. He better just take a pay cut, man. The grass is not always greener.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe he is blowing smoke just to get as much money as possible. So it's like a concern. Like, yeah, we got to pay him, but then maybe he does accept something a little bit less, but he just doesn't want to get lowballed. Because I mean, we just talked about the dude is a genius. Every move he makes is going to be super calculated.
I don't think they'll lowball him. I think some of the contracts he's gotten was kind of like surprising. Even like when they paid him a couple years ago, I'm like, that's a good amount of money for Draymond Green.
Yeah,
they gave him like $100 million. I'm like, that's good.
That's a contract of 28-year-old Draymond Green, though. That's like a prime age. This is a contract of 32, 33-year-old Draymond Green. That's a little different.
Exactly. That's why like he's tripping even more now, trying to get more money.
Yeah.
Love Kobe Bryant to death, but when the Lakers kind of messed up because they were paying Kobe so much money. Like a lot of money, and Kobe was either not playing or when he was playing, he just wasn't good anymore. So you don't always want to like just kind of fall in love with the idea of that's our guy. He's been here his entire career. Let's just give him however much he wants because it's going to come back to bite you in the end. And the Warriors seem like an organization that is winning over everything. So I just don't think Draymond getting a max contract is even possible.
No, I don't think so either. They definitely seem like one of the organizations that know when to move on from a player, like to a lesser extent financially, but similar to what the Raptors did with Lowry. Mm-hmm. It was time to move on. Like Lowry is still a solid player, but he's obviously not what he was in his prime. The Raptors have other guys they needed to give money to. Freddie was ready to run the show, and so it was time to move on. And every player, for the most part, has that point in time in their career because most guys aren't freaks like LeBron and are still averaging 30 a night as they approach year 20. That's just not a normal thing. So it's a tough decision to make as a front office, but those are important decisions to make.
Yes.
That's going to be a crazy day if Draymond ever suits up for somebody else. But like, yeah, I think this is why Tim Duncan is. I rate him so highly because Tim Duncan, in his final year of playing, that team was literally won 67 games and had a stacked roster because Tim Duncan took pay cuts while still being impactful. But he knew he wasn't what he was, and that what was best for the team was to him to still have his impact, but to take a little bit less money so they could kind of get some other guys to fill in for the step he lost.
Yeah,
And it worked super well. I mean, they didn't get a ring out of it after 2014, but still, those last 2 years of Tim Duncan, that team was way above solid.
Yeah, I mean, he made $10 million up to 2022, and then he made $10 million again per year from 2012 to 2014, and then $5 million a year through his last 2 years. Like this guy was definitely taking a discount.
That's just the winning approach. That's the winning approach. And Draymond's a winning player too, so I'm kind of surprised that he does have that mindset because it's like Tom Brady-esque. Tom Brady took pay cuts, so the Patriots always had these crazy stacked rosters. But then on the other end, it was like Aaron Rodgers did not take pay cuts. Packers didn't have a lot of pieces around him, didn't get the job done. Went pretty far, but just didn't have enough. And that's really the thing with players who want to win at the highest level. And Draymond, who's so committed to winning, it seems a little different for him. And that's why I do think it might be an aspect of him blowing smoke. And that if he does get a little bit less than that 30 mil, I think he'll still accept and buy in just because it is Golden State and he's been there for, I mean, it'll be over a decade at that point, right around a decade now. So I hope he stays there. I really do hope he stays there just because this trio is like in the era of player movement. They're like those guys that have just always been on the same team, played together, and had that whole career arc together. And I think that's it's great for the sport. They're as popular as they are for a reason. So, I mean, I don't know. He's going to do what he wants to do. I know he's probably way smarter than I am. So he's going to make the right decision. But I hope he stays in Golden State.
I think he probably will.
Yeah, I would expect he does too. I think so too. I can't see any of those guys ever playing anywhere else.
No chance.
Those guys are retiring as Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, if any of them ever go anywhere, I think it'll be like
I think it'll be Clay.
It'll be like a D Wade situation, I think, where they're gone for like a little bit and they come back and finish out. Like, I don't even think it'll be like a one-day contract thing. Like, I think all three of those guys, even if somehow they end up on a different team, they will play their last game in a Golden State jersey.
You would hope so. It's only fitting that that's the way it would happen.
I mean, when you do 6 NBA finals together and win 4 of them, and they're not even done yet. We all have them as a 2 seed next year, still right in the thick of things. Like,
sadly,
now I love watching Golden State play. Now, was I a little mad during the KD days when they were sweeping everybody and it wasn't even interesting?
Everyone was.
Yeah, I was. But last year, most of their series were really entertaining. That Grizzlies series, super fun to watch. Celtics series, fun to watch. The Mavericks series, they did kind of give it to them, but still a lot of fun moments at least. They just play a fun brand to watch. It's just like I said, they're as popular as they are for a reason.
Yeah. There's a reason why they played in Japan the other morning.
Yeah. Definitely was.
They're huge overseas too. I don't know how much of that is Clay's shoe deal, but they're super popular overseas as well.
Yeah, they definitely are. Steph was getting probably the next best applause outside of Hachimura. So
yes,
definitely popular amongst the overseas.
Have y'all? Because I'm gonna be honest, I have not been watching preseason basketball. I never do though. Honestly,
I've watched a few quarters, but that's about it.
Yeah. I was gonna watch the Celtics today, but I could not find a stream, so I'm like, I'm not about to dig deep to watch a blowout preseason game.
Yeah. The Raptors beat the Jazz by like 30. That was bad.
Markkanen dropped his 20 bomb though. Markkanen continuing the good run of the summer.
Man. He's gonna go crazy this year. I'm telling you.
He probably would. That's why I have them at a 13 seed, bro. They're gonna sneak out a couple games. And then, like, halfway through the season, Utah's going to be like, nah, y'all are winning too much, man. Get that trade value up and get out the door.
Josh Jackson with 10 as well.
Did they have their pick this year? Utah does, right? I'm pretty sure.
Let me go look. I'll go
I
look
would
at my site.
assume a team
I
starting
think
to
so.
rebuild that would.
I think they
I
have
don't
a
know.
pick OKC at some point, but it's got protections on it.
If you kick off a rebuild already not having your own picks, that's a little surprising.
Yeah, that would be terrible.
It's, yeah, they have their own this year. If they're not top 10 next year or the year after or the year after that, then their pick will be owed. But they have their own this year, as well as the least favorable of Brooklyn, Houston, Philadelphia, and as well as Minnesota's pick. So they'll have 3 this year.
Decent. Okay.
Yeah, man. If the Timberwolves are a 1 seed, like you guys say, those picks are gonna be a little bit worse, man. I'm thinking they might have like the 22nd, 23rd pick, and you guys are saying they're gonna have pick 30. So
Danny Ainge drafts better at the top of the draft and at the end of the first round. He does not draft good in between, so he'll be okay.
You're not wrong.
yeah, he's the same man who traded down to get Jason Tatum over 2 guys that will not be playing to start the season. So
hey man, no more kill slander.
Maybe I'll trade down for one of the Thompson brothers, and he'll end up being better than Victor is. So
maybe.
Dude, nah, bro. Victor, he's a Thunder, bro. Victor
That doesn't even sound right. He's a Thunder. Nah, the way the Magic are talking, I hope they tank and get Victor, man, because they're just playing positionless basketball.
Man,
Magic are not tanking, bro. Magic are spoiler alert, Magic are making the playoffs in my rankings.
The playoffs?
Nah, I'm lying on that.
I was gonna say he's following the Markel 4 seed prediction.
All right. Number 1, I haven't made the list yet. Number 2,
Yeah.
I think I've been heavily on record to say that I think that the Pistons will be closer to competing than the Magic will. So if either of them is making the playoffs, probably neither, but I think the Pistons will be closer.
I have my 10 teams written out so far, my top 10.
The bottom 5 is like what matters the least. I feel like we got through our bottom 5 in like 15 minutes.
Yeah. Well, that's what I wanted, because it's like whatever.
Especially
the bottom 4. It's just like,
oh my god,
barring a Cleveland surprise like last year, everyone knows who the bottom 4 is going to be.
Yes.
So unless Joshua Primo starts dropping 20 a night, then I think we're okay.
I'm glad we're doing this now because we have like a reference point to like really judge our predictions throughout the season. Whereas since we started at like All-Star break last year, like we don't have those like, oh, how did this pan out? It was like
check this video.
Yeah, we had playoff predictions, but those panned out in like 2 weeks. This is gonna pan out in like 6 months.
Yeah. Start of March, Minnesota are going to be in the 1 seed, and life will be good.
Hey man,
We come on this podcast with shades and a suit on, like I told you.
hey man, if the Clippers get the 1 seed, I'm throwing a party on stream. You'll see me out here. Listen, I'm gonna sit here. I'm gonna pull out this bottle of wine right here, and I'm gonna take some drink. I'm gonna take some victory sips. Might have some champagne on me. You know how it goes.
I feel that with either of my 1 seed picks, so be a very happy man if either of them hit.
I believe at least one of you guys are pushing that Cleveland 1 seed narrative. I think we already mentioned that, but if that pans out,
as I said, cannot confirm nor deny.
I cannot either.
If one of you guys actually has Cleveland, watch, we're gonna turn around next week, and I'm gonna have Cleveland as the 1 seed. I'm turning heel next week, but that's gonna be crazy. I think everybody needs a good hot take prediction though. I have the Clippers about 4 seeds higher than you guys do. Also, I have the Lakers not making the play-in.
The hottest take is either the Lakers one or me having Memphis at 8.
Yeah. Well, you guys were both low on Memphis, so I was the
Gabe
odd man out.
7 or 6. No,
I'd
Gabe
have
had 6.
I'd have at 6. I switched them in the Suns at the last second because I was like, bro, the Suns can't be in the play-in. But then I'm like,
Yeah, they can.
Suns could be playing. And I'm like, I did not like what I saw out of Chris Paul the last time I saw him. DeAndre Ayton does not look great. And obviously Devin Booker is Devin Booker, but we've seen Devin Booker with not a lot of great stuff going on in the peripheral before. And it wasn't pretty. I'm not going to say it's going to be that bad, but this team is not unshaken.
That's funny. I saw a tweet. And it was when Devin Booker scored 70, and it was that picture of them in the locker room. And somebody was like, I bet y'all can't name 5 players in this picture right now. I was able to name mostly everybody, but I could see how some people might not be able to name 5 dudes.
On that roster,
there
they
were
probably
some
had
faces on there that I'm like kind of thinking for a second. I'm like, that looks like so-and-so, and I think it is.
I'm thinking like Tyler Eulis, Brandon Knight.
He was in
Brandon
that picture.
Brandon Knight's in that picture. Marquise Chris is probably in that picture.
Yep.
Dragon
Bender
Bender
was sitting in the back. He was sitting way
Dragon
in the back.
Bender is there. And Josh Jackson's probably in that picture. If he wasn't on the team yet, then maybe they
He might have
still
been hurt or something.
Yeah, I don't know if he went to the bubble.
The 70 was way before the bubble.
Yeah, the 70 was like
Oh, my
Josh
bad.
Jackson got drafted that year, so he wasn't on that team. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
The 70
Yeah,
was 2017.
I don't know. Eric Bledsoe
He was
might have
on
still been on that roster. I'm not sure
He
if
was
that was
not.
before. He was not.
Actually, he might have been in that picture. Actually, I'm not. Or he might have been hurt or something.
Who was running the 5 on that team?
Alex Lynn.
Alex Lynn, he was. I thought they had him.
Toronto Raptor legend.
Legend. I think Tyson Chandler was in that picture too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
I think he
They had
was.
him.
Yeah.
They had him and Tyson. Yeah,
That
that
was
team
a
has
nasty team.
They had some rough time. I remember back in like 2K16, like that team's lineup was like Eric Bledsoe, Brandon Knight, Devin Booker at the 3. Yeah.
Team was nasty, man.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I can't believe that team. Honestly, that team pulled off a really good rebuild. It just sucks that the period of fruitfulness might be a little bit smaller.
I mean, they'll still be damn good. It's just once you get to the finals, it's like you're expected to get back to that point until you win it. So that's just like why it's gonna look kind of bad.
Yeah, it's tough though, because as young as Booker and Ayton are, especially Ayton, like last year was probably the best year they're gonna have unless they make another big move 4 or 5 years down the line.
Mhm.
Because CP was that move. As good as Booker and Ayton and Bridges might be able to develop, that team's just going to be good but not great, most likely, until they make another trade down the line.
Yeah,
they'll still be good. They'll probably be a playoff lock, but I don't think they're going to be looked at as title contenders for a while now as CP continues to decline.
I think it is a little rare for a team to like reach a finals and never take one home. I think like literally before, and obviously like the Suns and the Celtics, I'm not going to count because they're still sort of in that same era. It's definitely the window's not closed. But before that, you're looking at like KD's Thunder, Dwight's Magic. Like you're going back that far to look at other examples of that. And then before that, you're going back to what, like the Nets with Jason Kidd? Because in the mid 2000s, like the Pistons got one, the Spurs got one.
Cavs.
Oh yeah, I guess that is a different era. Yeah, that is one that's in there. I'm just thinking of LeBron Cavs, and I'm like, oh, he won one with them, but that's a completely different team.
Yeah. There's definitely a bit of a gap, though, just thanks to the fact that Golden State and Cleveland were there for so many years.
I mean, from KD's Thunder in 2012 to then if the Suns never go back to say the team that made it. Oh, I guess Miami. So to 2020, they're like 8 years in between.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that always sucks too. To get that close and to never get it done. Going back to Iverson, man. Iverson should have got a ring.
I mean, it's bound to happen though with teams. I mean, there can only be one champion every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's dynasty culture, man. How many players didn't get rings because Jordan was going every year? How many players didn't get rings because LeBron and Curry were going back and forth every single year because the Spurs and the Lakers won the West for like 10 years straight?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even in the era for guys we currently got in the league, I mean, Harden only having one finals appearance, as good as he's been, is pretty crazy. If Embiid can continue to play as well as he has, I mean, he hasn't even reached a conference final yet. Like, there's definitely some guys where they perform individually, but it just doesn't work out.
Hey, and with all that being said, Fred VanVleet still has a ring. So
Fred VanVleet does have a ring.
I guess that means that Fred VanVleet through ring culture is better than Damian Lillard, is better than Russell Westbrook, is better than a lot of people all the time because he's got that jewelry right here.
And he got a vote for Finals MVP.
He did.
Did he really?
Yeah, he did. He got one vote.
Oh my god!
It was one vote away from being unanimous. There's one guy who voted for Freddie.
He was cooking Steph Curry in that finals, bro. He was cooking Steph.
Yeah, some journalists or media members need to get their votes rights taken. Man. Jesus.
That New York writer who voted for Carmelo.
That's bad.
Man. Terrible votes.
Didn't Kendrick Perkins vote for Desmond Bane as All NBA this year?
He might have, yeah.
Hey, man.
I remember saying that. Because the
some
ballots, you can actually look at like people's ballots.
Yeah. I forget what it was with him too with the rookies. Didn't he have some Pelicans rookie that wasn't Herb Jones on the All Rookie team?
maybe Trey Murphy or
Trey Murphy,
Alvarado.
I think.
Yeah, I
Right.
forget. It might have been Trey Murphy, but yeah, he hit someone, but not Herb Jones. I'm pretty sure. It's like you watched to some extent, but you didn't put the right guy.
Herb Jones, man.
I just be wondering, like, do people actually be watching basketball or just like?
According to JJ Redick, lots of them don't. So, which isn't surprising. But
yeah, very true.
It's really I feel like it's the only sport where people don't watch and still like know enough to sound like they have an argument. Like I cannot talk about baseball, bro. I don't watch it, so I don't know. But I can talk about football because I do watch it.
Yeah, football's less committing too for that because it's like, okay, I sit down on my Sunday, I watch my games, and then I can talk about it for the rest of the week, and the media can just rinse repeat that cycle, right? Whereas like if you're working media every day and you got an average of 6 or 7 or 8 games every night to watch in the NBA, like you're just not keeping up, and it's clear that they're not keeping up.
It's tough.
It's because
right?
mainstream coverage is terrible, bro.
It's tough, right? It's tough to sit down and watch multiple, like Devin. I know you used to see my tweets every night. There would be like 12 games on a Wednesday night, then 2 games on a Thursday night.
Tough.
I would be mad because like I cannot watch 12 games, but it's not my job. But they get paid to do this, so they should have a little more accountability of watching these games, finding ways to watch these games because there are more ways to watch than watching it live. They should be able to do that, and there shouldn't be a world where Desmond Bane is getting all NBA votes. As good as he was last year, there should be no way he's getting all NBA votes.
As soon as the season starts, we're gonna be talking about like, oh, what are some early season takeaways? And somebody's gonna say something, and I'm gonna be like, I literally did not see that at all. Because maybe I haven't been able to sit down and watch a lot of this team or this player because opening day is gonna have probably like 10 games. So then you're looking at that, and I'm like, I'm not watching 10 games at once. Like then I'm gonna have no takeaways because I didn't watch anything with any sort of depth. And so I mean, it's really the name of the game. I think the problem that the mainstream media comes into is that it does matter how many people are tuning in and who's watching and what they're talking about. So then they're watching like the Lakers every time. They're watching Brooklyn every time because those are the teams with the most drama and the most stories, the most clicks. So then they're probably missing out on a lot of other teams because they're not even trying to divvy it up between 30 teams equally. They're giving these 2 or 3 teams so much attention that the other 28, then it's even less.
Yeah, no, definitely it is, and that's just the way the media is always going to be. Ultimately they're just catering to the viewers, so I can only fault them so much. But and I mean, even just to my extent, I mean, I'll I'll be to blame for that too once we get to a certain point in the season. Like when we're mid-January, I might try to catch a game or two of the Pacers a month, but I certainly ain't tuning into all 8 or 9 that month. Like there's too many games to watch, and you can't watch all of them realistically. Not with as much as going on in a normal life for a person that's not working the NBA as media. So I'm not watching 9 Pacers games a month. I'll tune into 1 or 2 to see how's Halliburton doing, how's Isaiah Jackson doing, how's Jalen Smith doing, but that's about it. And to your point of scheduling, Tyrik, the first day of the season has 2 games, the second has 12, and the third has 2. So good to know that that's how they're starting. Yeah.
Do it every year, man. It makes no sense.
Yeah. It's great.
I don't know why they do that either, especially like on days that have like these national TV games. Then you're just decreasing the ratings on the other ones even more. Like they wonder why NBA ratings are going down. But then it's like when it's scheduled like this, there's going to be some teams that get nobody watching because if some game is going on, and so there's like 3 games going on at the same time as like Lakers versus Warriors. Bro, nobody's watching any of those games. Everybody's watching Lakers Warriors.
Yeah.
And then between who's not watching that, even those games, there's like 3 split there. Then now that's 10 games, and one of them might be big marquee matchup. Nobody's watching that.
Yeah, I mean, like the second day of the season, there was 9 games that start within an hour. Like I want to watch all of these games. Like I want to watch the Timberwolves play their first game. I want to watch the Raptors play against Cleveland. I want to watch the Pelicans play against the Nets. I want to watch and see how the Hawks backcourt looks. I want to see the Magic play the Pistons. That's going to be a super fun young guys matchup. But it's like there's 9 games going on at the same time. Like there's just no shot.
It's impossible to watch all those games, man. Like, yeah, you would think the NBA would be better at this, but
then the next night there's 2.
Yeah.
And they are at 7:30 and 10, so you can watch the entirety of both of them.
Usually, it's like usually in the NFL, there's like 26 teams playing on Sunday because there might be 2 Monday night games and 1 Thursday night game.
And
so you got
a little bit less once you get into the bye weeks, but give or take.
Yeah. So, but yeah, like right now, like this week, I'm pretty sure 26 teams played in the NFL today. Yeah. But you had like 6 or so games at 1, these games at 4 o'clock, and like these games like at like the one night game. But then the NBA is like, oh, we're gonna have 8 games all start at 8 o'clock or like 7:30, and then you have like 2 games that start at 10:30. In the 10:30 games, a lot of East Coast people then are tapped out because that's just too late for a lot of older fans. And so it's like maybe they just need to start the games a little earlier, man. It's working for the NFL. I know it's Sunday, so most people are off work and they can do that. At the same time, a lot of times NBA games start to like 7:30, 8:30 on the East Coast. Maybe push that to like 6:30 at least, 6, and at least your 9 to 5 people can get to the game, get home, and turn the TV on. I don't know.
East Coast time is definitely the worst to be able to watch basketball for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is weird just because of how many of the teams are on the East Coast. Like if you think it's just geographically, like over half the league probably plays in Eastern time. They're like the Pelicans are a Western Conference team while being very, very, very far on the eastern half of the United States. Central. I don't know. Is Chicago? I don't know. Is Chicago Central or East? Central. I can't remember. Central. So Central Chicago and like
they're Central. I know New Orleans is Central. Dallas. All
New Orleans is Central. That's surprising.
Yeah, Louisiana is Central time. Used to live there, so I remember it vividly. I don't know about like Milwaukee or Indiana. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, still though, I feel like it's way balanced towards the East, especially the East Coast. So like the fact that the Eastern time zone is the worst one to watch in is very surprising.
Yeah, having the Lakers get blown out last year at 1 a.m. was definitely not ideal for maintaining viewership. That's for sure.
I was watching. I was enjoying those games, man.
Well, it was good for the first half of the season, maybe.
Yeah,
And
it was
then
fun
once
until like January.
Once we got to January, then it was like, yeah, okay, this team is just actually this bad.
Yeah. I remember sitting on this podcast and hearing Tyrik say, "Man, it's not even fun anymore. It's just sad. It's not even fun."
Because like that time period of my life was just like very tough. It was like the end of the first semester of school and stuff. But I always knew I could come home, and by 1 a.m. I would be filled with joy because the Lakers would be getting embarrassed on TV. I would just love it. It was just so fun to watch. But then once we got to like January, February, it's just like this is kind of pathetic. Like LeBron was trying to do everything he can, and they just couldn't win games. It was bad.
I felt bad for the Lakers just because. I mean, I was really happy that Lakers fans were in shambles because.
Oh yes.
I mean, Lakers fans can just get very annoying very quickly.
They would still find a way to be annoying, like even though they were bad.
All the Kendrick Nunn stuff, yeah.
Bro, Kendrick Nunn. I was literally in the space, and they were just like really adamant that Avery Bradley was the reason they were losing these games.
That might have been the funniest point in the season, man. Avery Bradley was the cause of the Lakers' downfall.
Not Anthony Davis not being able to stay healthy, not Russell Westbrook being bad. It was literally Avery Bradley. And I'm like, well, Avery Bradley's not great anymore, but he's still probably the best defender that y'all have on the perimeter. Still.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if he is bad, like a role player being bad is not going to be the reason that you're bad.
No chance, man.
It's just not.
I remember they were
like
gassing
Kendrick
up
not
Ken
being
Bays.
back isn't going to do anything. Not to a significant degree, at least.
It'll help a little bit, but not like drastically.
No.
Kent Bazemore was like a talking point for the Lakers last year. Like,
At least their pieces are a little bit better this year.
I agree.
A little bit.
Like,
Crazy, I still have them at 11. I just don't trust them, man. I just can't do it. I can't do it. I'm going to do that now.
It's safer to be like on that side of the fence than the fence of the Lakers are about to bounce back this season. It's safer to be on the side of they're going to be bad again.
It's like they got they got Schroeder, they got Lonnie Walker, they got like Thomas Bryant, Pat Bev. Like they got a couple 4 or 5 solid pieces. I'm like, who's moving that needle? Who's moving the needle? And I don't know. Juan Toscano Anderson. He's a great guy to have in the locker room, I think, honestly. I like him as a guy to be on your roster. I don't know how much impactful minutes he's giving you.
He might have to play some decent minutes for them because
I like his vibe.
They don't have wings. He has to play.
Can't get the wings, man. Like they don't have that many.
They just got Beverly, Lonnie Walker, Nunn, and Reeves. They have a ton of guards. And then they on the wing they have Toscano Anderson and they have Troy Brown Jr., which is definitely a little bit scary.
If they had somebody in front of those two, I would be a little more confident.
Yeah, those guys as your 4th and 5th wings is not bad, but as your 3 and your 4, yeah, I'm a little bit worried about that one.
They need Jay Crowder.
They do need Jay Crowder. Yeah,
Laker fans are getting better though, because I would have been saw Jay Crowder photoshopped in the Lakers jersey by now, but haven't seen it happen yet.
True, that's true. Yeah, their only other wing really on the roster is Wendy Gabriel.
Is he even a wing? I thought he was more like a 4 or 5 kind of guy.
I mean, yeah, but he's gonna have to be a wing for this team. So,
Gabriel, yeah, he's 6'9".
Yeah, he's 6'9", 205, but he doesn't really shoot from deep. He's just a big power forward.
Yeah, given the splits of his stats, yeah, any guy who averages 7 times the amount of rebounds he does assists is like a big.
Utah might cut Stanley Johnson, and the Lakers can pick him up again.
He's gonna save the team, man.
I was today's years old when I found out St. Johnson was the Utah Jazz. Had no idea.
Yeah, that is his current home. I'm pretty sure he was included in the Pat Bev trade. Pretty sure that's what it was.
It's so weird talking about players that are like on those teams that don't end in S. Like I hate saying he's a Magic, he's a Heat, he's a Jazz. Like I just try to find ways to not I think it like he's a Heatle, bro. He's a Heatle.
Well, what are you gonna say about a Jazz? He's a note. Like I don't know.
Yeah, hey, bro. If they started calling Thunder players, if they said he's a Bolt, I could get behind that. I could get behind that. He's a Thunderbolt, you know.
Are we about to call Raptors the Dinos now?
I know.
Velociraptors.
He's a clover, man. He's a clover. He's a leprechaun.
Nah, but it's just because the teams don't end in S, so it's like the Celtics is plural of Celtic, so one of them is a Celtic, but the Heat are made up of Heat. The plural of Heat is still Heat. I don't know. It just seems weird when talking about teams.
Okay, makes sense. Blake Griffin is in fact the Celtic, though.
He is. I literally, you walked into the room, and the first thing I had to say was, Tyrik. He's a Celtic.
He's a Celtic, man. BG. That was that move was so out of left field when I saw it. I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. I'll take it.
Yeah.
I think the Celtics need Draymond, man. They need that on-court coach. They don't got Coach Udoka.
I would take Draymond right now. I just wouldn't want to pay him all that money.
Just take him on a 2-month loan.
Yeah.
Unrelated, but the NBA website currently has Drew Eubanks as the season stat leader for the preview of the Trailblazers' first game, which I think is absolutely amazing.
Spurs legend.
Absolutely amazing.
Trailblazers are still going to the league.
The league?
To the playoffs, my
To the league.
Man.
They got relegated.
They were really struggling last year. Goddamn.
Sorry. Nah, they're going to the playoffs, man. Because listen, they're gonna get into that 8 seed matchup. If my predictions were correct, and the play-in matchup was like Luka versus Dame to get into the playoffs in a 1-game scenario, that would be ridiculous.
That
game might go to like 7 overtimes.
But yeah, those are two of them. Those are two of the most clutch men in the sport.
And then Drew Eubanks is going to drop 15 points, and that's going to seal it.
Drew Eubanks, man. My only memory of Drew Eubanks is he dunked on the Nassus in the bubble. That's my only memory of him.
Yeah, I don't think I have any other good memories of him. I have a lot of missed shots around the rim from last year, but that's about it.
Didn't y'all trade for him? Like he was a part of the Thaddeus Young trade, and then y'all just waived him?
I think so. Let me go look. He very well might have been.
Because I remember seeing, I'm like, oh, that's decent. At least they got some type of big body. And then like 30 minutes later, Drew, he was waived.
Yes, yeah, he was part of that trade, and then got signed to 5 10-day contracts by Portland. Then was signed for the rest of the year, and then was signed for the upcoming season. But he got 5 10-day contracts. I don't think I've ever seen that many. Usually by the third, they'll either keep him or not bring him back. But he got 5.
5 10 days that used to not even be legal.
Yeah, he was on a 10-day from February 22nd until April 3rd.
How are you? I don't know. Like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, at least give him a
That is crazy.
It's called a 10-day for a reason. Like a second 10-day, all right, but
yeah, you'd have to be on edge for like every single day you wake up. You're like, man,
bro,
am I gonna get that like rest of the season contract?
Am I extending my hotel for another week? Like
at that point, you've been under contract for a significant part of the season. Like they might as well sign you.
50 days, like that's a long time.
It's crazy.
50 days, yeah, you've literally been under contract for a month and a half. Like
Yeah,
That's like
they-
almost if you play like 20 games in that stretch or something. I mean, that's like
A fourth of the
a quarter
season.
of a season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, they almost paid him $500,000 last year.
Still not making more than the Nuggets mascot.
Still not making more than the Nuggets mascot.
That's
Rocky's
a
getting
wild
paid.
stat, bro.
No,
They
yeah,
said
I'm in the wrong business, clearly.
they what they said the average for NBA mascot was $60K, and he's making over 10 times that. Like,
Yeah, that is some
I would say-
wild negotiating. I need his agent. That's what I need.
Yeah.
I know, like the fact
60K
that
is
he's making that, like the fact that like Benny the Bull is making less than that.
he's still making
Like-
400.
That's like it's the Bulls, bro. Like it's an iconic. Like the Nuggets mascot is not that. iconic.
Rocky is pretty iconic, man. I ain't gonna lie. I be seeing him doing a lot of stunts and stuff on social media. I think that's probably why he gets paid so much.
I didn't
Make him do
know.
some crazy shit.
I didn't know who the Spurs or who the Nuggets mascot was until that post. I'm gonna be honest.
I can't say I did either.
Oh, y'all
be
some
honest.
casuals, man.
So,
The
Y'all ain't
Nuggets
in tap. Y'all ain't in tap with the mascots, man. That's crazy.
I know
Really
most of the mascots. I know everybody knows the Magic's mascot from
Actually,
Aaron Gordon in the dunk contest.
There was one mascot on that list
Man.
where I did not recognize. I was like, I didn't even know this team had a mascot.
I remember seeing that mascot when I watched the game in Orlando years ago before I was super into the NBA, and I had no idea what the mascots are. And it's like, man, this is a wild mascot. You are not missing him when you're walking through the stadium.
Man,
Isn't the Cavs mascot like Moondog or something?
I have no idea.
That might be a
Oh, you're not in tune with the mascots, bro? Come on, you gotta tap in.
I'm a casual.
moon
He's a
dog.
casual. He's a casual.
Does
I-
every
I-
team have a mascot? Like, I don't think every
I
team has a
don't
mascot.
think they do. I know, like the way the NHL was going, they were transitioning to either teams for the most part had a mascot or a cheerleading group, and there was more going towards cheerleading groups. But
Jazz gotta have a walking music note, bro.
Shout out my guy Stinger from the Blue Jackets, man. That's my dude.
list of NBA mascots. Here we go.
Bro,
Brooklyn do
Jazz
not
just
have
have-
one.
This is just so random. Look at Bernie for Miami. Like, who is that?
Did he have a mascot?
Slamson.
Brooklyn,
Slamson the Lion. Is that the Suns?
Brooklyn
No, that's got to be
do-
the Kings.
Yeah, Brooklyn
Oh,
do not
that's the
have one.
Kings.
Golden State do not have one. The Lakers don't have one. The Knicks don't have one, and everyone else does.
Bro, the
Lakers got
Suns have
Lakers.
the Suns have a gorilla. Like,
Yeah,
what?
go the gorilla.
That's so random. Oh, the Franklin the dog is for Philly. That makes
They have a
sense.
mascot? I did not know that.
Yeah, Philly
They
is
don't-
that. Oh,
Timberwolves
Yeah.
Timberwolves have a wolf. Pelicans have a pelican.
I think the Cavs have two. They've got Moondog, like I said, and then they've got Sir CC.
Let's see, yeah, they have two, and the Mavs have two. You got Champ and Mavs, man.
Mavs, man. That's I don't like human mascots, bro. I'm gonna be honest. I think it's like weird. Like a dude in a mascot suit, and the mascot suit is just a dude. Like, why are you wearing a mascot suit?
It's definitely a bit different for sure. Oh, what? There's mascot of the year awards? I did not know this.
Bro,
Apparently, Chuck the Condor was mascot of the year in 2022. So
I'm honestly
There you go.
surprised there's never been a copyright suit between like Lucky Charms and the Celtics.
mm,
Because if you look up Lucky the Leprechaun and go to Google Images, it's all Lucky Charms. They
I
don't
wish
even
Lucky
let-
Charms was with the Celtics.
Apparently, he's not even in a mascot suit. They just got a dude
It's
dressed
a
up as Lucky
person.
the Leprechaun. Yeah, that's probably the only mascot in the NBA that's like that. Hey, but don't dare step on Lucky the Leprechaun during a game. 'Cause
You're gonna get swept.
I still do not understand this whole concept. Like, if it's like, they say like, don't step on a team's mascot in the locker room. All right, that's one thing. They say don't do it on the court. Like, you're running up and down the court, stepping on it
I mean, obviously,
all game.
but not like deliberately, stomping on it.
what Kyrie did was a little wild, but some people take offense
that's
to
what
like
they mean.
on the mascot in general. I mean, stepping on the logo.
Nah, it's making a scene on the logo. I think is more so
Yeah.
what people.
The worst is still probably the Dallas Star. When you get the Dallas Star, they come for heads.
Not wrong. You are not wrong.
Didn't T.O. do that? And then somebody like tackled him.
Yeah, they got him
Yeah.
big. I think he like did it once and then he like went to do it again and somebody like took him out.
It's definitely
I think somebody was
a
trying
thing.
I feel like Juju or somebody tried to do it and they were like, nah.
Yeah,
You're
Juju.
not that guy, pal.
Tried to do that with the Steelers, yeah.
Juju was on that one, the peak of his TikTok era with the Steelers. Yeah,
When they started 11-0 and got bounced in the division in the
Yeah.
wild card round.
Was it Von Bell that like took him out hard?
Yep. Shout out Von Bell, man. Saints
Shout
legend.
out Von Bell. Shout out two picks on Thursday. Von Bell career game.
Yeah, 2 of them.
He had 2 picks, but he only had like 2 in his first like 96 career games. Then he had 2 Thursday.
He's a turnover machine, man. He used to always force fumbles for us. Or
All time career game for Von Bell. Also, all time career game for Eli Apple, man. Tyrik Hill only got like 7 yards on him. So
Eli was
Tyrik-
very, very good that game. He's actually been decent all year. I'm not gonna lie.
Hey, now that Joe Burrow's only been sacked twice in 3 weeks, Bengals are back, baby. The Bengals are back. They needed to mesh without having TJ Watt and Micah Parsons rushing the passer every play, man. I don't know what else to tell you.
I don't
Now
know.
that-
That's kind of indicative though, because then it's like, well, what are you guys gonna do when you face another good pass rush?
They're going to be better meshed. They have some experience playing together now against not the best pass
Let's
rusher in
hope.
the league.
People were saying that about the Saints today, like, oh, Andy Dalton looks so much better than Jameis, but that was also the worst pass rush that we faced all year by far.
yeah.
I saw Andy Dalton did look pretty solid, but still not better than Kirk Cousins, man. The battle is Sunday at 1 o'clock quarterbacks.
Yeah. Yeah. The rest kind of hold us in the same breath too.
Yeah, they definitely didn't help.
It's fine though.
Definitely didn't help. I
At
know
this
it's
point, we
only-
might as well just tank.
You guys should tank, bro. You guys should tank for Victor.
Tank for Victor, man. Yeah.
Tank for Victor.
Can he throw the football?
He'd probably make for a pretty good tight end. He might not be the strongest one around. You might not want him for blocking, but
Saints need to
he'd be
take
pretty good in the air.
Saints got to take CJ Stroud, bro. CJ Stroud with Chris Olave reunited in New Orleans. New Orleans and Ohio basically just switched people. Ohio got Jamal and Joe Burrow. Louisiana, they get Chris Olave.
I mean, we already have like 15 Ohio State players on our team, so we might as well just keep adding to it.
Hey, man. Bengals are just reuniting LSU. LSU and Ohio are just Louisiana and Ohio. I mean, are just about to become best friends, man. Just taking all of each other's players.
Exactly.
Only preseason, but Jabari Smith's dropped 21 points tonight. And is
Okay.
off to a hot
Rookie of
start.
the year, Jabari Smith.
5 of 8 from deep. And is hitting. It is against the Spurs, but still.
The Spurs, though, they're playing all their best players right now.
Yeah, well, yeah. Keldon Johnson's not playing, so
He
That's-
did
that
randomly
would be
get
his
hurt out
matchup.
of nowhere. Yeah.
Rookie of the year.
Keita Bates-Diop is the power forward, so
Who's
all
gonna be
respect to
rookie of
Keita
the year?
Bates-Diop. He's a fine backup power forward, but not starting power forward.
I just want to see Keegan Murray play. That's it.
Facts.
That's my guy. And taking all that Keegan Murray stock.
Sacramento's
be
first
rookie of
game is
the
against
year.
Portland. It's going to be a good,
Oh, they don't play
preview.
They don't play any defense. Keegan Murray is giving them everything.
Well, I mean, he is probably going to be against their best defender, Jeremy Grant,
Sabonis is going to go pass first. Okay? And he's just going to keep giving it to Keegan. Feed the hot hand.
Yeah, we got a few decent matchups on that first big night. The Mavs replay the Suns. Portland play the Kings.
It'll be
Cavs
Keegan
against
Murray.
Raptors would be good.
Man.
I think we played the Bucks opening night.
The Bucks. That might be the opening
No,
night game.
or is it Philly? It's one
Play
of the
Philly.
two.
Yeah, you play Philly. Philly, Boston is the early game, and then Lakers, Golden State's the late game.
We're gonna beat Philly by like 15 points.
We'll go with that.
Yes, I'm biased. No.
I can't wait to do Eastern Conference predictions, bro. Because just thinking about the Eastern Conference predictions, that top 9, that might be the best yet. That might be the best yet. 'Cause I think we all had really similar tiers of teams this time around, but like the East is going to be
the only major differences were Memphis and Minnesota. Everyone else was relatively within
the Clippers pretty far out.
Well, that's true. But yeah. Those are the 3. Everyone else was relatively in the same tier. There could definitely be more than 3 teams that have a multiple seeding difference between multiple lists next week. That's for sure.
Is it a secret that I had the Lakers not making the playoffs and the Clippers as the 1 seed? What does that say about me and my thoughts on LA? I don't know, but it might be indicative.
Clippers run LA? Question mark.
Clippers clip gang or do not gang?
Nobody says that.
Clip gang or gang. I say that. I'm a closeted Clippers fan. I've been a closeted Clippers fan. When I first became an NBA fan, when I was playing NBA 2K, it was the Raptors with DeMar and Kyle Lowry, and the Clippers with Chris Paul and Blake Griffin. Those are my teams. And I ended up settling with the Raptors as my favorite team because I just like them a little bit more. But I've always had this affinity for the Clippers.
I have a Blake Griffin and Chris Paul jersey in my closet right now.
Chris Paul jersey is not surprising. Blake Griffin jersey is very surprising. I did not expect that.
When I was a kid, I used to really love Blake Griffin.
Yeah.
It's a big Blake Griffin guy.
He's a highlight reel, but I don't know. Usually the big men aren't the guys that are super big in jersey sales. Usually it's the point guard market.
Hey man, I also have a Dirk jersey and a KG jersey. I think those are the only bigs I have.
Dang.
Yeah.
Yes, you got that power forward position on lock.
Yeah, man. Didn't get any centers though. They get any centers.
My jersey, do I have any big man jerseys? I've got DeMar, Zach LaVine.
You have a Zach LaVine jersey?
I went to Chicago. I had souvenir. Why am I not thinking any jerseys I have right now? I have a LeBron jersey. It's an old Cavs one that was like a 2X because it was like $35 somewhere. I never wear it because it's way too big. I've got a Kyle Lowry jersey. I need to get Scotty Barnes, but I've got Dwayne Wade. Mainly guards for me. LeBron, he plays like a guard even though he's bigger.
I have 2 LeBron jerseys, but they're from Cleveland, like back in the day. The nice Cleveland jerseys, the very good throwback ones. Yeah.
Those are way better. I think their 2018 jerseys were pretty cool, but like those like 2014 to like 17 jerseys, the Adidas Cavs jerseys, I was not big on.
I'm talking like 2008, 2009.
Yeah, those jerseys are solid. Those jerseys are real solid, but I'm not a big fan of like just like the yellow ones.
Fan of the t-shirts.
Actually,
I like the black t-shirt.
From that era, the black t-shirt was the best jersey they had. Is that a hot take? I don't know.
I like the orange ones that they would wear sometimes. That was kind of like a throwback one. I love those.
Yeah, those are nice.
The black t-shirts are overhated though. I like those jerseys.
I thought they were really nice. I thought those were solid. Honestly, for the most part, I liked most of the sleeve jerseys. I don't know if that's going to get me crucified. Obviously, they're worse to play in, so I can see why they do not exist anymore.
I didn't hate them, honestly. Some of them I did not like, but some of them are like, they're cool.
There was that one really bad Warriors jersey, but I think if the shorts were not as horrendous as they were, it would not have been as bad.
I think that was like the introduction to the sleeve jerseys, and the Warriors were like the first team to wear them. They were kind of bad.
I feel like somebody had one. I don't know if it was like the Celtics or somebody. I feel like somebody had a sleeve jersey that was just like gray, and that was not
like
really
that.
good. I was not a big fan of the gray, so that was kind of rough.
Yeah, those weren't all that. But a lot of iconic moments happened in the sleeve jerseys. The 3-1 comeback was in the sleeve jersey. Remember when Steph shot that 40-foot bomb in OKC?
Yeah, against OKC, that was a sleeve jersey.
Man, like
there's a reason that 2016 season was like the best season of all time, and they were wearing sleeve jerseys.
Underrated era. Come on, man. Sleeve jerseys need some more love, man. Bring them back.
Adidas had a couple of things up their sleeve. Nike's jerseys, I think, have been better, mainly due to city editions. I think city editions, and especially the earned editions, giving them even that extra jersey, those are usually where the cool designs come out. A lot of the times, though, just the regular like icon or association jerseys are kind of mid. Statement jerseys are usually decently cool, but then those cities and earns are usually like fire.
I think that's what makes the Nike jerseys better, are the city and earned editions, but the fact that the regular ones are becoming so basic and we don't have Christmas jerseys anymore kind of rub me the wrong way.
Yeah, I think it makes sense they don't do Christmas jerseys. So that way, like, maybe teams can wear their city jersey or debut an earned jersey. And that way, like, people see those on the court more. Because then once you have too many jerseys, people just don't see them.
It's surprising, though, because usually it's like another jersey means more money made for the league.
Right, yeah. Because somebody's going to buy that no matter what it is.
For sure.
Even the last time, the cursive letters ones were always really good. I think really the sleeve jerseys probably really started to prove the Christmas jerseys. I feel like around like 2013 or so, they had like the Bulls ones, Lakers, Heat had them.
Yeah.
Because everybody was saying it looks like they were wearing Christmas pajamas.
Yeah.
So yeah, those started with the Christmas. But yeah, overall, like, I think another thing too with the Nike jerseys is whenever they bring out the classic editions, they're usually really solid. Like when the Warriors got those like 2007 era ones, or even like the really old school ones, they're really nice. Yeah. Same thing with like the Raptors got to bring out some classics, if I'm not mistaken. Utah had some classics really across the board. Just every time they bring out a classic jersey, the Timberwolves really stick out. The Timberwolves back in like 2018 or 2019, whichever year they had like whichever year D Rose dropped 50 and like
the black ones.
Yeah, like
yes,
I wanted that jersey so bad, but it was so hard to find like a one with D Rose anywhere.
You know, it's funny. My dad has a KG version of that jersey in his closet.
It's a really nice jersey. That one is.
I'm gonna steal it from him one day, just to have in my collection. Steal it.
That one, that same year, the Timberwolves, that was the same year they had like the Prince jersey with like all the pink, and I really like that one too. That one was sick.
Yeah.
Timberwolves jerseys are usually really solid, I think. Their whole
I like the ones that they brought back this year for real. I like those decent.
Yeah, that's a good jersey.
Ever since their big like rebrand around like 2018, I've liked kind of that era jersey. Before, when they were like the previous era, like that early Wiggins era, those jerseys were solid, but I'm way bigger on their sort of current lineup.
Yeah, they were kind of plain, and they had those jerseys for like 7 years or something like that. They had them for a while.
That was the thing with most of the Adidas ones, where they were really plain overall. And Nike's kind of has some plain ones now, but I feel like with Adidas, almost everybody's jersey was pretty plain.
Yeah.
It's kind of tough. True. But like back when, like, who was making it mid 2000s? Like Reebok, right?
I think so.
Whoever made it before Adidas, they were putting in some work.
I think it was Reebok.
I'm gonna just look up.
Reebok sounds about right.
Adidas took over the contract at the start of 2006, 2007.
Had to have been Reebok then.
Yeah. Wait, when did Reebok sponsor? In 2001, Reebok became the exclusive apparel outfitter for 29 teams in the NBA, which is everybody because the Hornets I don't think existed yet. At least the current Hornets, Bobcats version. So, yeah, from like 2001 to 2007, it was Reebok, and a lot of really solid jerseys at that time. Obviously, late 90s had some fire too, like those Jazz jerseys, those Raptors jerseys, ones that people look back on super fondly. But I feel like, to me, Adidas is my least favorite for making jerseys overall.
I don't know. I can't say that because that was my childhood, man.
That's true. That's true.
That was my childhood. So many good memories.
Need those Toronto Huskies jerseys back for a couple games at some point.
Those were fire. I like those. Those
Nice.
were fire.
Top five.
I could do without the camo jerseys coming back, but
Yeah, those were dragged out too much.
yeah, they definitely were. But I could do with the Huskies jerseys coming back for a few.
The
Apparently,
Raptors had one of the best rebrands when it came to jerseys out of any team because the ones from like the late 2000s, early 2010s were just like,
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
don't like them.
They did a good rebrand when they rebranded everything once we started making the playoffs with Lowry and DeMar for sure.
I mean, the jerseys were definitely super solid from that like kind of like 16 to 18 era. But I think the current rebrand with like either like North or Raptors or whatever it may be, kind of like in the arrow pattern, like I really mess with that rebrand. That's the Kyle Lowry jersey I got. So I have DeMar's from like 2018 and then Lowry's from our current brand. And I like both of them a lot. And then I had a DeMar t-shirt version of like that first black and gold North jersey. I wanted to get one of the white ones for Kawhi, and then even like a Scotty Barnes, one of our current vibe, where it's like the 1999 era sort of jersey, but in like the white and gold. I thought that was super solid. I'm looking right now at top selling jerseys from a while ago. Apparently in 2007, number 1 was Kobe. Number 2 was D Wade, which is crazy that D Wade was number 2 because then LeBron was 3. And then 4 was AI on Denver, which I thought was super surprising. I didn't expect AI in Denver to be 4th in the league because he wasn't even the best player on that team.
He was still really good in Denver.
But Melo was number 6, and then Steve Nash was 5.
Was Shaq anywhere on that list? Or that might have been around the time he got traded.
Shaq was number 12 in 2007, still playing for the Heat. Stephon
KG?
Marbury was 7. That was pretty standout. KG's not on here. Dirk is 8 for the Mavericks. Gilbert Arenas. I think because KG went to Boston around that same time, and Paul Pierce's jersey is at number 13, so he was probably selling a little bit more jerseys because, you know, people don't buy the big mans as much. Ben Wallace on the Bulls is 14 on this list.
Ben Wallace on the Bulls. That's nasty.
Those are the standouts to me. AI all the way at 4. Stephon Marbury on the Knicks at 7. And then Gilbert Arenas being high is not surprising. Vince Carter was 10 on the Nets, not surprising. T-Mac, not surprising. Shaq, Paul Pierce, but then really Ben Wallace. That's wild. At that point, Denver was 6th in most merchandise sold. It was Lakers, Heat, Knicks, Bulls, which is no surprise. Cavs with LeBron, which is not too surprising still. And then the Nuggets. Then Boston, Phoenix, Spurs, and Nets.
Interesting.
So, yeah, even all the way back then, 2007, before the Lakers really got good and turned it up. I mean, they did go to the finals like literally that following season, but Kobe was really carrying that team on their back, not only in the court, but in the merch sales.
Rockets got 2 rookies dropping 21 points in their preseason debuts. They got to be feeling pretty good right now.
Yeah, I told you, man. I think they're going to have the most ready-to-play players, and they're going to play the whole year.
Possible. They got Bruno Fernando ready to go on his new contract. So,
you know, they need a different
bag.
Bruno. They need a different Bruno on that roster.
Bruno Caboclo. Guaranteed postseason appearance.
Say Bruno Caboclo is sponsored by 3 Point Weekly. He's one of our favorite players here on the podcast.
Celtics legend as well.
Celtics did him wrong.
He's a Celtic. He's a Celtic. Bruno Caboclo is a Celtic.
I think we traded him away, if I'm not mistaken, or we cut him or something.
He just got cut, yeah.
Yeah.
He was cut before camp, which seems a little bit harsh, but
Denzel Valentine also got cut, man. Cannot claim him as a Celtics legend, sadly, but yeah, all I have to say.
He's a legend in our hearts. It's like Melo in Atlanta, man. He's a legend. Or D-Rose on Utah.
Hawks legend.
Bruno Correa Fernandez Caboclo is currently a free agent.
So sad. So
Ready
sad.
to be claimed by whatever team will end
He's
up
a game.
having
He's
the
a
legends
game.
of Bruno Caboclo.
He's the guy who can save the Lakers.
I was about to say he's a Laker.
If the Lakers sign Bruno Caboclo, I'll move him to number 9.
Hey, they need some wings.
I'll stand on that. I'm standing on that. If the Lakers sign Bruno Caboclo, they instantly move to number 9 in my predictions. You heard it here first.
This is what this podcast episode is turning into.
This is what happens when you're almost 3 hours in.
Bruno.
Obviously, these are probably going to be released further apart than they were recorded, but we have recorded almost 6 hours of content in 3 days.
Facts. Yeah, this will probably be up in a few days. Get a little bit more back on schedule for the Eastern Conference.
Hey, that Eastern Conference, man. Raptors 1 seed. That's the last take I have this episode.
It's not what you said earlier.
They've gone from the 9 seed to the 6 seed to the 1 seed since I've joined this meeting. So
listen, the more you guys really let me sit around here and think about how good the Raptors are about to be, Scotty Barnes is about to be how y'all have Anthony Edwards, bro. Just don't let me get too carried away.
You're a year too early, man. Year early. Next season, though, for sure.
You might think, but what was LeBron doing year 2?
I don't know. Did he make the playoffs?
I'm pretty sure he did. Yeah, year 2. I think the only year he missed the playoffs was his rookie season.
And last year.
Well, Scotty Barnes made the playoffs as a rookie, so he's already doing better than LeBron was. That's just me.
If I'm hyping anyone's jump, that'll be Achua's jump, but that's a hype in for next week.
Man, I'm hyping Delano playing. That's
Delano Banton, man.
Delano Banton.
I really love his game.
He always looks really solid. I love him as a backup guard, man. He comes in and
actually, this is the Malachi Flynn year. This is it. It's happening this year.
Hey, man. I really hope so, because he went to a college that's special in Raptors fans' hearts. So
San Diego State, yeah. I had to think for a second.
San Diego State, same college as who?
Kawhi.
Kawhi Leonard. Let's go.
Yeah,
I was trying to think of somebody else that went there, but I couldn't.
Nurse is definitely trying to play up that backup point guard rivalry, because first day he was like, Banton's the best guy at camp, and then second day is like, Flynn was the best guy at camp today. That's definitely trying to play up that competition, so those guys keep improving.
That's the mad scientist, bro. Nick Nurse, the only dude to call out box and won in the NBA Finals and win that series, bro. He's insane. He's insane.
He's definitely a mad scientist.
Hey,
He definitely sees the crazy.
Who has more finals losses? Nick Nurse or anybody else? Nobody has less finals losses than Nick Nurse does while having a ring. So
not wrong. You are not wrong.
The more you start letting me spread this propaganda, I'm really about to not only say that they're going to be the 1 seed, but that they're going to go back to the finals and Nick Nurse was going to be 2-0.
I can confirm that the Raptors are not my 1 seed.
Yeah, they're definitely not mine either.
That's all I'm saying.
Well, I guess my 1 seed. Listen, you guys had my 1 seed this episode as like a 4 or 5 seed. So if I do it again, I don't think that's too crazy, you know?
It would be par for the course for you, for sure.
I'm actually looking at the East. There might be like 4 teams that I can realistically see being the 1 seed.
The Celtics,
Maybe
the
5. Maybe 5.
I probably got 5 or 6.
I think it's Bucks, Celtics, Sixers. Y'all are high on Cleveland.
Bucks, Celtics, Sixers, Cleveland, yes. Maybe Miami. Brooklyn's a wild card.
Brooklyn's a wild card. I don't think Miami is that good in the regular season speaking.
Yeah, I probably got 5 that I wouldn't be surprised about being the 1 seed.
I don't know, man. Tyler Hero got 35 M's. He's back with his baby mother.
Hey, bro, once the guys get the money is usually when they start playing a little worse. They don't gotta play for nothing. It's guaranteed.
This is Tyler Hero, man. Like, y'all don't understand who he is. Like, he's different.
Honestly, you sold me. You sold me. I think the Heat might actually get the 1 seed now because Tyler Hero is he's him. That's my homeboy Tyler that plays in South Beach. He told me this summer he's gonna fix my jumper. And so because of that, I think that they're gonna get the 1 seed.
We're not dropping Jack Harlow lyrics on the pod, man. That's where you lost me, bro.
That's what they all say, bro. That's what they all say.
It is known that I'm not a Jack Harlow guy.
It is very known.
That's what they all say.
For being unfazed at being.
Yeah. He's about to be on the way out of this podcast, man.
Oh, man. Tyler Hero got $35 million, man. What the hell?
Oh, man. The Heat would just do anything to make him smile.
I guess, man. Oh. I hope he has another improvement of a season because, man, that's a lot of bread.
Yeah, that's enough to fly in first class, that's for sure.
Yeah, maybe a few times. Might get a few trips out of it.
Get this guy Gabe off the pod, bro.
Hey, man. Somebody had to do it. Somebody had to do it. All right, y'all. Y'all got anything else for this episode?
You kind of lost me, man. I ain't gonna lie.
6 hours of recording within a few days is too much.
Time for 3 more. We're recording tomorrow too.
I don't know who you think you're recording with because you ain't recording with me. I got 2 midterms on Tuesday.
Oh, man.
Soonest I'll be recording is whenever I got the Achua script ready to go. And that will not be tomorrow.
Some precious propaganda.
So
all right.
We gotta push a couple more before the season starts.
I think on that note is outro time.
It is indeed outro time. If you guys are still here, we do very much appreciate it after we have talked about NBA jerseys and mascots for the better part of the last half an hour. But be sure to let us know your thoughts on our Western Conference standing predictions, the actual important part of today's episode. We'll be sure to come back next week for our Eastern Conference standing predictions. And if you did enjoy the episode, then be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for next week's predictions. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.